All right, so welcome again, everyone, to our work session for Monday, October 27th. It's 5:37. So let's start with the roll call.
Mayor Garitano,
Present.
Councilmember Farmer.
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Here.
Councilmember Nyan.
Here.
Councilmember Trottier. Councilmember Mabry.
Here.
Councilmember Roblewski.
Here.
Councilmember Preston.
Here.
Councilmember Marshall.
President.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Here.
Councilmember Rambo.
Here.
Councilmember Bockert.
Here.
Councilmember Kranz.
Here.
Councilmember Vanek.
Here.
Councilmember Albers. Councilmember Galani.
All right, great. Thanks again, everyone, for being here, whether you're in the room or on Zoom. Just a couple of comments, the next part of the agenda, just to kind of get the meeting warmed up for the exciting topic of the municipal budget. So thank you to our staff for their work over the recent weeks. We had the race that took place on Friday night. And so, Joe, sound like everything went well. So that's good. And then also, I do want to thank staff for the first execution of the Haunted Express. In case you're not aware, this is a great partnership with the Wabash, Frisco, and Pacific Railroad, where they ran a train on a Friday night, 2 trains, and it was dark. And then there were these wonderful actors along the route, a lot of zombies along the way in the dark. I think we even had some city staff, right? Were they out there also being, were they also dressed up as zombies or? Okay, who had the chainsaw? Was that one of ours? I don't know, but that one really got me going there. So I would highly encourage council to check it out next year. It seems like it's a cool event, and hopefully we can even get some additional seats or come up with some ideas, because I think there's a lot of great interest. We've got this legend right here in Wildwood, Zombie Road. So I think it was a wonderful evening, and Travis was serving up the chili. We had a fire going there. It was great. So thanks again for doing that. All right, and of course, then the other item I just want to share, we did have the Mayor's Bowl. That's the annual football game that takes place between Lafayette and Marquette, the rivalry. So I was there with Mayor Sue McNamara, and I'm pleased to report, if in case you're not aware, Lafayette did win the game. So great to have our high school that's in Wildwood in here, and then we'll look forward to continuing to do that next year, and also look at bringing back also the one we did with Eureka. Yeah, we'll need to do that next year. Okay, so thanks again. So let's then dive into the main reason we're here for tonight, which is under for action. We have the review of the proposed fiscal year 2026 municipal budget. I'm going to hand it over to our city administrator. He's spent a lot of time preparing materials, and he's also walked around tonight presenting some materials. So I'm going to let him talk to what we have in front of us. And also ideally, kind of how we want to make this an efficiently run meeting. I know several folks might have some ideas, questions regarding some of the items here.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor. And just wanted to first say thank you to the staff for assisting and getting all these projections put together for us. It does take a incredible amount of work. And while we got all the other events and everything going on, just wanted to give a quick shout out to them. This has been something we've been reviewing for the last couple weeks now. And what we've done and what the handout kind of goes over through the committee review, there was discussion and then requests from admin, PW, and also the Planning and Parks Committee to go ahead and kind of put out what is truly needed when it comes to operating expense, and then what may be potentially not needed. So that said, what was handed out today, do apologize for the small text, but it does show a couple different columns here. One being option B, which is original budget from different department heads coming in saying what do they need for that fiscal year. That's before any real checking goes into it, and then balanced budget option A is the budget that was then brought back down to levels of our revenues, which we'll get into here just in a second. And then last but not least, there's a last column that has been recently added, which this one is different now because of it. And you'll see different rows highlighted in green that indicates a change. And that shows PMP added expenditures or adjustments. And then it shows that recommended change a little bit more in depth of what that change was and what actually is what's being added back, if you will. So we'll go through these, and if there's any questions on them right now, that the Planning and Parks Committee, it was discussed and acknowledged that 350,000 would be acceptable to pretty much dive in and allow the use of our reserve fund balance. That said, after going through these, we were able to identify expenditures equal to 212, and then also 2 saving items. So did want to present that. So really, when looking at these columns, you really want to look at the option B column, the balanced option A, and then PMP adjustments. It'll show the difference between the 3 as you go to the right there, but just wanted to call that out, which we can go through. The other component, just wanted to go through revenue real quick. I know we've had this discussion at different committee meetings up to date, but I did just want to call it out just in case anybody wasn't here for those meetings. There's really been, for 2026, our revenues are remaining relatively stagnant. We did want to point that out just because there's 2 different funds that have been decreasing, and then there's been, just some general rises in expenditures that have happened year over year. One being our utility tax from telephone, the gross receipts tax from telephone service. We've seen that slightly decrease over the years from its height back in 2019. I think it was $390,000, and now it's coming in anywhere between 220 and 230 each year. It does seem pretty consistent at this point around that number, the 220s, but overall it has been decreasing year over year since 2019. So on average, that's almost an annual decrease of about $190,000 to $200,000 in the last 5 years. The other side of it is the cable franchise fee, which produces a similar result. And that comes from the gross receipts tax that we had charged for cable being installed within the right of way. That was also locked in at 5%. But year over year, the state legislation had decreased it by 0.25% for each year, starting in 2021 and then ending this October. So that said, we've seen a nominal decrease there as well, from about $400,000 to about $200,000 annually. So when you combine those 2 for annual averages, they combine to be about $400,000 that we're no longer seeing based off those 2 taxes alone. The other side of that is that we are seeing increases on the side of our expenditures just for our normal service contracts. So 2 of those items, one, just the generalities of insurance, et cetera, that goes up each year, but we did have a nominal increase from our police department, which will increase again each year. It's not unusual for it to increase, but it's at a 3% increase. And then we also had just year over year increases in a couple percentage points in each department. So we overall have $59,600, projected as our increase in operational revenue. And this is just speaking to the general fund. And then for the expenditures, just with the police and just with insurance, et cetera, alone, I mean, that could be 200,000. So what we're looking at here is we had to kind of go through each different department and find some cuts to make. We presented those cuts in the balanced option A, which did differ and have some pretty significant operational impacts. So that is what's being provided. The option A shows, and then if you look in the column that says operational impact, it'll show what the difference is between option A and B, but this new column, PMP recommended changes from that meeting and from the Administration Public Works Committee, Economic Development, and then also the Board of Public Safety. That's where those adjustments had come from. That said, with the last recommendation, it's around $212,000 in the red. So the department did, just as part of the general fund process, first and foremost, want to answer questions about any revenue questions, but then possibly go through some of the highlighted green, or if there's any that are in white that you'd like to call out, would love to jump into those today. But the goal of tonight's meeting is to collect feedback. It's just a work session, but get specific motions as to what should be included, what shouldn't, and then we'll take that feedback and then incorporate it and bring it back to the budget public hearing with the presentation that is scheduled to occur on November 10th, 2025. So that's really the plan, is to have a better understanding of where we're wanting to go as the whole city council. And then when it comes to the next meeting, we should have, instead of 3 different options kind of boiling around on one piece of paper, we should be filed down to one with some slight adjustments possible. So ready to answer any questions before we dive in, but wanted to start off and give that intro statement.
Any questions from anyone, please raise your hand. Councilmember Golani, and then Councilmember Mabry, did you also have a question? Okay, so go ahead, Councilmember Golani.
Hey, thank you. Great work on all of this. One question I had is, it was my understanding that in the Parks and Planning Committee meeting that we had suggested an authorization of 350,000 to offset budget
That's correct.
deficiencies out of the reserve fund, but on here it's showing 212,000.
That is correct. So it's at the last page, the back page. Second to last.
And the reason I'm asking that is because even with 350,000, I think the total deficit was 483,000 and change.
Yes, that is correct.
So we were looking at 350 and then figure out ways to cut out the remaining 130. But I was just wondering how we got to the 212.
So the 212 was, the department interpreted it as going up to 350 and we kind of stripped back. The thing is, you could add in, and I had a couple notes here to bring up, but we're trying to keep it as balanced as possible without, straying too far into the weeds. That said, we did add back some items. I'd be more than willing to go through these. I did go through these.
No, I'm not saying we have to go to 350. If you were able to get it down to 212 by being more austere, I think that's great. But and we're more than happy to take 212 over 350, I think. But I just wanted to ask that because to clarify that
And-
point.
and one
I'm
of
not
the-
saying we have to go to
No, I get you. I get you. One of the major changes to it's included here, not major, but it's a decent change, and it was part of the discussion that was at Planning and Parks. There would actually be a $31,000. It would be about 250,000 actually, if you accounted for the 31,000 that's been reduced, and this is in the PMP recommendations for the elimination of our legislative consultant. So I know it's still off from the 350 total, but did want to call that out. That is one of the green expenditures that you'll see that is actually a decrease to the total year over year, and wanted to discuss that too. This still, and just I'll jump into a couple of those. We did add back in the budgeting for the special events, considering we do have the Route 66 100th anniversary. That's still going to include some cuts for some events or some type of services given to our residents, whether it be catering some meals for some of the paid events, which kind of takes away some of the selling of the event itself. Or some of the free giveaways that we do. The other side of it is Music on Main. We've kind of wanted to have this discussion because that could truly be back up to 80 to 85 if we want to maintain 4 full concerts. That said, we did the math on it and found it was about $5,000 each event to do the free hot dogs, the free ice cream, the free kettle corn, the free drinks, etc. So we almost have 2 options here. We can do 3 concerts at full steam, or we could do 4 concerts with a reduced scale, or we could go add it back in. That was one that was somewhat, we didn't get a firm direction in that meeting, so we wanted to have some room to bring it back.
No, and
in.
I know the committee's perspective on that was that we should eliminate the free giveaways of all of that stuff at those concerts and events. We don't need to be giving away free hot dogs and popcorn or anything, T-shirts.
No, eliminate it.
We just got rid of the May concert, right?
So was that an official motion? Okay, so that would
Yeah,
actually.
we did get rid of the May concert and we got rid of all the free T-shirts, hot dogs, popcorn, all that stuff. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So that was the that was a little
Yeah.
bit of confusion we had. I mean, that said, I mean, that's a
Yeah, I mean, if we're putting on we're the committee, and correct me if I'm wrong, committee members, but what we had discussed was the fact that obviously with, inflation and the fact that the revenue sources for the city are tight and we're in a negative situation as it is, this isn't a problem that we're going to deal with for 2026. It's an ongoing problem that's only going to get worse. So we're not trying to figure out how to balance just this one year so that we can get back to normal next year. We got to figure out things that we can do differently that are going to put us in a better position to be in a right path moving forward indefinitely. And so our thought process was that with the reserve balance being close to 20 million or 19, whatever it's at, we've talked about it as long as I've been on council for 6 years now, that it's way more than we need to have in our reserve fund. And we were looking at doing an audit to figure out what we could get it down to that would be safe and healthy, and then use that difference as to how we would spend that. And so there were talks about going to the taxpayers for additional revenues, which how can we go to the taxpayers and ask them to pay more taxes when we've got an extra $8 to $10 million sitting in our reserve fund? So that's why the premise of authorizing the 350,000 was not just a one-time thing. It was, we looked at it as if we did this for 10 years and gave the city 350K out of the reserve balance, that would be 3.5 million over 10 years, which even with the money being invested and growing, it would be a minimal amount. We would still be way over and have plenty to figure out what to do with the difference. But getting rid of, if the city's in this position and we have all these parks and all these things we like to do, we don't need to be giving free food and t-shirts and popcorn and things like that to the residents on top of putting on the concert. So I just wanted to give a summary of what our conversation was in that meeting and the reason and the why and how we came to the motion we did as far as authorizing up to that 350 and why we were taking away some of those things, not because we're looking to impose draconian measures on the residents, but free food and things like that aren't something that people have to come to a free concert, in our opinion. Sorry. Yeah, it was June, July, August.
So that said, I mean, that is, and that is consistent with what was talked about. Could we potentially tonight get a firm motion whether, and we can go through these, at least the green ones that were changed one at a time, but the idea would be to get some motions on these so we can have the firm directions for what we present back. So it's, and that one is pretty easy. It's remove the may and then reduce the freebies, if you will.
Yeah, if you want me to make the motion, I'll
Yeah,
make it.
and let me just pause only because I want to respect the order of the speakers. So let me ask, Councilmember Mabry, you had raised your hand. Is your comment related to this? If not, I will ask, let's get this motion on the floor to get this done. And then we can obviously come back to you if it's unrelated to. Yes, yeah. Then you're fine. So yeah, this would be a good time right now. If you want to go ahead and make that motion, then we can get the vote of the council.
Just music on Main is my understanding.
So we're just
that,
gonna eliminate the May concert.
It's on
And
the
the free
second page
giveaway.
of the
Yeah.
handout that you received tonight. The row is in green, the second row.
Yep. And real quick note on that too, before we, if that motion is, the council would like to make it. One little item we did have was to have somewhat of a contingency added in there specifically for the Music on Main concert. It was originally 60,000 and option A, sorry. And it was increased to 65,000 to allow for the inflatables that would still be included. So that tonight, that third option, if you will, the planning and parks recommendation is at 65,000 for 3 concerts, and it could have accommodated a 4th concert if we did away with the freebies. So that said, it could make a change here. I mean, it's because it averages about $5,000 per event for the free and items that we give out. We could, in theory, potentially keep one, or it could reduce it more.
And I think the other thing with May is that, I mean, school's still going on for most of the kids anyway. And so, I mean, and the weather's an issue. And, you know, to me, it's a summer concert series, I think, and even if take that $5,000 and put it back in the budget towards something else or whatever, save it. But I look at it as a summer concert series, June, July, August, with August being the back to school finale. So no reason to try to add extra months on the front or the back, I would say. We can even we can rebrand it to summer concert series. I'll make the motion that we just do June, July, August, and we get rid of the freebies.
Okay, so then Councilmember Galani is making that motion and then seconded by Councilmember Rambo. I heard you say you would second. So again, for clarity, the motion being made is that the concerts for next year would be in June, July, and August. And also the, I guess the elimination of the free food or something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, Director Vunish, did you have something you wish to say?
With all due respect, I have no idea what Tom is describing in terms of this new handout. Mr. Brown and I have not received it.
Joe, I'm just now getting it out. So it's not very much different than what was already presented.
Certainly out of respect to the department
Please
directors,
take.
wouldn't it be nice if we could see it?
I'm going to give you mine and I'm going to look over here at Tom's so you can have it.
And by the way, per the direction of city council, the only thing we give out free anymore and don't charge for are the concerts. And it's the drinks, the hot dogs, the kettle corn and ice cream. Everything else, we don't give out free t-shirts. People pay, just like at the event Friday night. It's a $40 fee. If you enter on race day, it's $50. City council was clear several years ago, we need to start charging for events. So from that perspective, you're saying things that aren't correct. And I don't know where that information is coming from, but it's not the Department of Planning and Parks. And by the way, we have the May concert because the weather's usually more favorable. We've been rained out about 3 times. The July concert is our least attended one because it's always hotter than blazes. So just some information.
Okay, thank you, Joe, for that. And I think too, doesn't stop the city from working with the partners that we have, like the Lions Club, to still provide food, but it'd be sold. It probably would be cost or whatever they, can determine that's an appropriate value. I'm sure that's still an option that can remain on the table. I know that when we were looking at expenses in the past, we had a discussion about free hot dogs. And I know that a lot of folks cherish that. I've worked handing out the hot dogs over the last few years, and sometimes the observation was you'd have people come with a plastic bag loading up like 5, 6 hot dogs or something like that. And so having a nominal charge might help at least, set some accountability.
One time the hot dogs were donated, but they're no longer donated.
I don't know.
Never happened?
No, I think Director
Okay.
Gunich, do you wish to, I think the city purchases the hot
Okay,
dog.
so,
Yeah.
well, that is a free.
So I know that conversation happened in the past and we were looking at ways, I think we're in a difficult situation of trying to figure out cost savings. City Administrator Lee, then with this motion that's on the floor, can you just recap the financial benefit of that? Yes.
Can I say one more thing regarding to that? If you want to Director Vunich's point, I don't have to necessarily say the specific months. I say just 3 instead of 4. And if the department would like to do May, June, and August and take July out, which to me kind of makes sense because a lot of people are on vacation in July anyway. But leave it up to the department to decide how to allocate those 3 versus the 4. That's just,
I think that would be great to allow the flexibility. And again, I think it's also important to keep in mind, we're specifically talking about the concerts. Let's not forget, we also still have the concert that takes part as part of Celebrate Wildwood, which is in September. So let's see what other questions or comments we have. Councilmember Albers, then Marshall, then McCutcheon.
Freebies Celebrate Wildwood?
No, I think this conversation is specifically related to the concerts and I think just as Director Vunich mentioned, maybe let's just be specific about what we mean when we say freebies. So it's I think it's good that we clarify that. So I think the city provides hot dogs, drinks, chips, all the condiments. We have ice cream, kettle corn. Am I missing any others? That's it. So if we keep it where we're saying generic, that's what the city is not paying for anymore, then those would be all part of that.
But
So-
I guess I'm just,
Celebrate Wildwood, there is no free food or
Okay.
anything like that.
okay, because I was thinking in conjunction with getting away from the parade, I guess we're talking about too, that if, I don't know if we're,
We're going to cross that bridge shortly. Yeah.
good. Was including reductions with Celebrate Wildwood.
Councilmember Marshall and then McCutcheon.
Inflatables, like the inflatables out then.
No, what's included would have for Music on Main, the back to school party, if you will, and for the Celebrate Wildwood, we both have inflatables. That said, the footprint, and we haven't fully organized it yet. The layout, I don't think, and Joe will be a better speaker to this than I, will probably not be able to accommodate as many, or we'll have to find some room for the inflatables. But it does include that. That's inclusive. Oh, well, we would not be getting rid of the inflatables, is the clarity.
Okay, Councilmember McCutcheon.
So back to school concert, nothing would change there, correct?
Part of the motion that's on the floor, there would be a change, and it would be that the city would no longer pay for the hot dogs, beverages, condiments, kettle corn, ice cream.
And so what else then would be at the back to school music concert? What would be there?
It would still include, based off what we're looking at, I mean, it would still include all the other features. So the bounce houses, the juggling Jeff, the kids attractions. It just wouldn't have the free food component.
So how much, if we continue to provide the free food, what's that cost
It's about $5,000 per event.
per event?
And it's typically Music on Main. Well, it depends on the attendance too, but Music on Main, you typically see a little bit of a jump if the attendance is there.
Personally, for the back to school fair, I'd still like us to hand out the free food. I'm okay with not doing it at the other concerts, but I think for the back to school fair, we should go ahead and hand out the food. I think that, I think the families enjoy it. I think the kids really enjoy it. It makes it a little bit more festive.
Okay, Councilmember Dodwell.
Have we already spoken with these vendors and arranged for them to participate in these events this next year?
We haven't had anything signed just yet.
Okay. Number two, is there any reason that we couldn't charge what the cost of those vendors are to the residents if they want to buy kettle corn, et cetera, so that we can recoup the cost of those events versus taking away those items?
Yes, and I think individually we'll have to go through each one and double check everything, but we can definitely set it up where the only one, and I think the Lions Club would oblige that if we charge for the hot dogs, that we purchase the hot dogs, it's a little bit of a different situation, but for the ice cream and the kettle corn, that would be pretty simple to maintain. And then it would also depend on who the vendor is, because we don't currently have a vendor that would sell the drinks. We do have, I guess, some food trucks that have one food truck that's come to these events, but it would be difficult to have them be the sole source of drinks and then get some kind of recoup. It would almost be like they have to bring their own drinks. So that'd be the one we'd have to look at.
Yeah, I think it would be hopefully the intention of the council that there would still be food available at these events, just that whatever the cost is that, that would be charged so that this way can, cover the expenses there. And I believe we may be one of the last few cities that still offers right now complimentary food. I think other cities charge for that item when people go there. So, Councilmember Galani.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment in relation to that, and I don't disagree with you at all, Councilmember McCutcheon. I mean, it's a great thing to be able to give away free hot dogs and kettle corn and ice cream, and I think the residents that participate in it love it and enjoy it, and no one's arguing that. I think for us to sit up here and say, well, we should keep doing it because it's a nice twist and it's a nice additive and it's great. Those are all true statements, but at the end of the day, we don't have the money. So government typically has a great time having conversations about what they like to do because it's cool and it's great and it's fun and people like it, as if there's an endless supply of money, but there's not. And if we keep spending, we can give free hot dogs away for another 5 years or so until we go bankrupt, and then we can't keep up our parks, we can't do anything else, and we stop functioning as a city. So, sometimes we've got to take action. This is a frill that is an unnecessary frill. And sure, the people that get a free hot dog love a free hot dog. And I don't think if you polled all the residents in Wildwood, 100% of them would say they'd like a free hot dog, right? But at the end of the day, we can't do things that we can't afford to do, and we can't afford to do it. And we're going to go, we're running a P&L here, whether we choose to admit it or not. And so, at some point, even using some of the money from the reserve, our revenues are going to continue to go backwards. And if they ever get rid of the pool tax, which is something that could happen in St. Louis County, we're done. We're not a city anymore. So we got to stop talking. And the only reason I bring this up, and I'm not trying to sound ignorant, but I run a P&L for a living, and it's, when we have conversations about what we need to do and what we should do, because it's like people like it and it's fun and it's great. Like, none of that matters. What we have to sit here and figure out are what are the mission critical things that we have to spend money on to function as an operation, and to be able, we've built all these parks, we've done all these things that cost a lot of money to maintain, and the infrastructure that we have to use to repair these things and implement different ways of maintaining them are only going to continue to become more expensive. So we have to, in my opinion, stop looking at it as far as what we think people will want and like, and take the action that is our jobs to do as council, that not is always easy, is to say, what are the mission critical things that have to be done, and how do we maneuver across that to position ourselves for now and in the future? And if people don't like it, then that's tough. Sorry. But it just the same way you would do for your family, you got to make tough decisions sometimes that everyone's not going to agree with and might not be the most enjoyable, but we're not in a position to do things that we want to do or that we think are going to be reflected on positively by everybody involved. Just my opinion. Sorry.
All right, well, I don't see any other hands up. What do we? Oh, Councilmember Ottenberg.
Just a brief comment regarding the food at the events. Yes, one option is to continue providing food and then charge for that food, but then another option would be to continue, as we decided in planning and parks, eliminate the free food and then contract with, have food trucks come in and provide food for the residents as well. So that's another option that can be explored.
Yeah, in fact, that's already been happening the last couple of concerts. Tom has brought in, I believe, 1 or 2 food trucks. And so I think the variety and options, and those are where people pay for those items today from the food trucks. I think folks do like having that variety there, because not everyone may like a hot dog. So sometimes we hear that our hot dogs are too salty. So anyway, okay, so we did have the motion on the floor. Councilmember Marshall. No?
So many different numbers here.
Yeah.
You decide this decision. Say that's $20,000.
I think maybe that might be the best way to make the motion, because that might give most flexibility to, I mean, it seems like that's what it's going to account for, is what we've discussed, but if that's, yeah. Well, I think if we stick with just saying that maybe that's the reduction, if we end up getting free hot dogs next year, then we can give free hot dogs. But, I think the way the motion is described right now, we're just not paying for it, I guess. So is that maker of the motion and the second, how do you feel about rephrasing your motion again with the input from the director as being not maybe perhaps just limiting, changing it to the number of concerts? Yeah, 3 concerts for
instead of
next year.
4, and then still, once again, I 100% support there being the option for vendors to be present, and we can even invite food trucks and bring in additional food besides hot dogs. And I mean, these days, food trucks are great because you don't have to pre-purchase the food all the time. You invite them to come and they'll line up along the street, and residents can have options to a lot of different food items. I think if the city goes out and buys hot dogs with the intent of selling them, that's still an expense that can fall on the city if we don't sell them all, or because they spoil. We can't save them for the next concert. So I would advocate looking into inviting food truck vendors to come out and provide options, because having the food is great. It's just we can't pay for it. In my opinion.
We don't restrict anybody from bringing their own food in.
Right, yeah, that there is no restriction, I believe, today. So then, just to let's make sure, Colleen, what's the motion, or do you need it restated? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, say it one more time. If you don't mind, state your motion, so Colleen.
So I make a motion to change the concert series from 4 to 3. And those 3 can be at the department's discretion of when to use them. And then eliminate the free food and bring in vendors to offer food and drink options for the residents that they can pay for.
All right, and then the second of the motion, was that okay with you, or do you?
Yeah, except I have a further comment. There are folks that may not be able to afford a $10 hot dog from a food truck, but they would love to pay for the actual cost of a $2 hot dog from Wildwood. And I wonder if there's some way we can provide guidance to support investigating that at the same time, because you also mentioned that we might be able to get some, we might get free hot dogs again or something like that.
Well, I think that, and I might ask for the department or the city administrator's input there. I mean, just because the city is no longer paying for the hot dogs doesn't stop the city from perhaps having a conversation with some of the partners that we have today.
You mentioned the
Where,
Lions Club.
I mean, the Lions Club has been a partner there, and maybe something could be worked out where they use it as a way to raise some funds and sell hot dogs. That I'm just throwing it out there. I think a conversation would have to be had with them, but I would think just like we've had other organizations that participate and sell beverages at events, they use it as a way to raise money. So maybe there's something there. I don't have the math on,
Yeah, I'm just
break even is on hot dogs.
I'm hoping to prevent the situation of folks that don't have much money. Suddenly they can't come there and get a hot dog, but if it's a $2 hot dog, most folks can still afford a $2 hot dog. And so I wanted to be sensitive to that issue. I don't know how we do it, but
Yeah, we do. And in fact, I see a lot of folks that will come in, they bring these like little tables and set up a nice spread there in the field.
Yeah, I see.
Councilmember Otten.
Yeah, I guess just a brief comment. Yeah, I'm sensitive also to those who may not be able to afford food from a food truck, but I think we need to be cautious here because I know many owners of food trucks would be reluctant to come to a city event where they see the city essentially competing with them by providing a $2 hot dog.
Councilmember Nye.
I just had a clarification. I know this says no free food, but can we put in there still free water? Is that true?
That was understood too, that we would have water available, just not the soda part. But that, just because it's so hot outside, I think it's a
I think
given.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I had one last just quick question, and I don't know, have we ever done it before looked? I mean, I know a lot of different municipalities and stuff that have things like this. Could we have it like a corporate sponsor and offer it to where a corporate sponsor could come in and say, we're sponsoring the June concert, and they could have a banner with their company and then they pay for the hot dogs or whatever? We could come up with a list with, it's only $5,000. A lot of companies spend $5,000 to sponsor a
Well, I do
Schools,
believe, yeah.
charity gala.
Yeah, I believe over in Chesterfield, it's the Chesterfield Chamber of Commerce that sponsors all their concerts. And I recall the city of Ellisville, I believe that they have sponsors like West News Magazine that sponsor their concerts there. I don't know if it's a full sponsorship or partial, but I think that certainly our neighbors are doing that. So we might want to look at that.
If we have some data to show how many thousand people show up to these concerts, And you could show a company to say, I mean, $5,000 is not a lot of money to a corporate sponsor to write a check for $5,000 to have their banner up as being the sponsor of this month's summer concert series or whatever.
Just,
Okay,
And as long as we're able to, the main thing is that vendor is going to want that promotional piece. They're going to want to have, either a banner put up. And the question would be too, I think it would be necessary for them to cover those costs as well.
Sure.
Councilmember Krantz.
in addition to the vendors, like, for instance, the Lions Club, they cook the hot dogs, maybe they could be the vendor for the hot dogs and control that and put a price on it and it just go with some charities as well as vendors. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, I think those are all good ideas. All right, I don't see any other hands up, so I guess we have that motion on the floor made by Councilmember Galani and seconded by Councilmember Rambo. Anyone need it repeated? All right,
What I have is we'll have 3 concerts instead of 4 and eliminate free food and give the option to bring in vendors for food and drink.
okay.
Right.
And explore potential sponsorships for offering food for free. Not us, but really we're not, I'll kind of repeat it there. Reducing the number of concerts from 4 to 3, the month doesn't matter. It will be left to the department to be able to define which months work best. Still providing food vendors, but we will not pay for it. The other side of it, we will still provide water. And then overall, we're going to be looking to find sponsors. If there's a way to offset the cost for the food, that would be explored.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain? Motion passes. All right, City Administrator Lee, you can continue.
Thank you. And just for the sake of time, if you don't mind, I can jump through these real quickly. But overall, I wanted to give a couple quick notes just about all the funds first and foremost, and then we can kind of dive into the operational. Because overall, the other funds that we have, we want to jump into the capital improvement sales tax fund as well. But realistically, the operating budget and the capital improvement sales tax fund are the 2 that we'll probably focus on the most. The other ones are really just day-to-day operational expenses. The one thing I wanted to point out is that the town center sewer fund, that account does still exist. That fund exists. We closed that out in 2023. We've been working to get the last remaining delinquent assessments, but once those we're down to less than 5 properties at this point. And we have taking necessary steps to put a lien on their homes and things along those lines to get those paid. But once that's all paid, the idea would be to issue a refund and then close out that fund altogether. So the department is anticipating that refund would take place in 2026. And we have about $350,000 that could be refunded with an additional $90,000 that should be retained in order to, if there's further action that's necessary to get the remaining amount. So just putting that out there. And then the other one that is just a quick call out that it's expenditure without address revenues is the Deer Management Fund. We do have funds associated with that account as well. And overall, we are back in 2023, we separated those expenditures out from the general fund. So there isn't necessarily a revenue source that's offsetting that expense. So those 2 I just wanted to call out specifically. But if in the sake of time, we can go through the operating budget with the document in front of us today and just go through some of the changes that were made, really. Would that be acceptable with the mayor?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So first and foremost, feedback the department received from both the Administration and Public Works Committee and also the Planning and Parks Committee was that the salary adjustments to work those back in to the overall budget. So that wasn't.
Trying to find it.
First page. Yeah, we're starting. Yep. First page. Okay, so we're going to go through the green highlighted items. If there's anything along the lines, the only items that have been added as a reminder is the adjustments and the expenditures in general. So the PMP adjustments, PMP added expenditures, so the changes from that PMP meeting, and then also the PMP recommended changes. So that's the impact since that meeting. So that was in consolidating both admin, PW comments, all the committee comments into one. And there is still some room here. And the reason why that room, to speak to Mr. Galani's point, was that there could be a need to have some additional funding put towards the our park maintenance since we're adding in the village green. So that's where the breathing room kind of comes in there. But to go through these real quick, one at a time, we have personnel. The adjustment that was originally proposed in the version A was 2%, but we, after studying the market, 4% is actually where the market is right now. And both committees had determined that that would be acceptable, and that does increase the budgetary expense by $64,311. Going down here, the one thing that the Planning and Parks Committee did want to call out as well was the Hometown Heroes program, retain that program. That covers the expenditures associated with purchasing the actual signs themselves and then putting those signs up and then taking them down 1 month before Memorial Day and 1 month before Veterans Day. The other one, we wanted to add in a contingency for computer systems for the parks team. That could be monitors, could be keyboards, etc. Also, if a computer goes out or needs parts, special events, we did want to increase that budget back up to $25,000. The reason for that, even though we have probably a little bit less of special events we're going to jump into, but overall, we're having the Route 66 100th anniversary, and the idea is to make sure that there are funds set aside for when the council, if they want to support a special event. That I guess this was one of the ones we wanted to talk about. If we want to have some money set aside for that specific, we don't know exactly what the event is yet, but we're already kind of talking about a scavenger hunt and some other things that haven't been necessarily announced. The idea would be to have something set aside for the Route 66 100th anniversary, and that's where that change comes from. There was a question there. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, you have a question, please go ahead. Okay, I think Councilmember Mabry, do you want to, I guess my question is, which item are you interested in speaking about?
Out of the last admin public works meeting, I had made a request that a recapitulation would be made that if option B, as it's turning out here, to retain the quality and the quantity of services as this year and not penalizing the city and its residents by our accounting practices, which funnel accounts back if they're not used appropriately or whatever. I had asked if we take every item of option B, which retains quality of services, and we find out what the shortfall is to that, instead of balanced budget A, which reduces what I consider to be critical, sounding trite, but it's going to be safety, security, and salaries, which we've already addressed and sounds like we're proceeding with. What exact dollar amount, would that require that we draw from our reserves, and what actions can be taken that we could vote on to take those funds out of those reserves as they're needed. And as that draws down the 19 million in reserves to a lesser figure, and I'm hearing figures anywhere from 250 to 380,000 or whatever, that we are going to be doing two things. We're going to be drawing down those reserves and communicating that to residents that we are drawing down reserves to retain the quality of services that they've grown to enjoy and expect. And that's going to require the very clear communication also that we need a means to increase our revenue by those means that are being drawn down by the fact that both state legislation and taxing base is being eroded from our income. I don't see where that's been accounted for or being discussed or are being recognized. And that's really all.
Thank you, Mayor. So that it would be included in option B. So that was option B, which I know it's getting confusing with 15 different options here, but overall, What that was showing with no cuts whatsoever, keeping up with inflationary pressures and remaining at the revenue that we're at now, it was at $483,601 over. It's within option. That's this page that was just handed out is so not that page. This is included in the budget document that was on the agenda. So sorry for the confusion here. That said, in option B, if you go to I would have to show you on the computer, but overall, there's a fund balance page. Yes, that's correct. So to do that, I mean, the council could approve option B. To do that effectively, you would be approving option B. The Planning and Parks Committee wanted to take there was two different directions that were taken. Administration and Public Works had given direction to go ahead and look at some of the 5-year averages, but try to make cuts where possible, but come back with somewhat of a revised, and that kind of comes into the recommendation for PMP, the PMP recommendation tonight. It kind of includes both of them. The other side was Planning and Parks had mentioned that use this 350,000. We don't want to go above that number. And that was based off of what we could do for approximately 10 years if we had to. And then that's what was really created from this. And part of that, why it's at 212, was what we actually subtracted out the legislative consultant services, which we'll cover here. And the other side was to retain a little bit of funding, which was going to be discussed tonight too, but wasn't stated, was that we might need some additional funding for the park maintenance as well. That if nothing's cut, that's correct.
Councilmember Farmer.
Yeah. So I think, these budget conversations are always kind of interesting because we fight this balanced budget thing, which in my opinion is sort of a generally made up thing because we just move stuff around and make adjustments as we go, but it's what we have to do. One thing I will say is I think City Administrator Lee did a really great job. You guys have all done a great job with this budget stuff this year, but last year you did a great job of calling out an issue that we had approaching with the capital improvement budget. And we've spent the better part of the year trying to sort out how to fix that problem, make some adjustments, some of which are painful, more painful than others. In admin PW, we decided to try to go with kind of a scientific or mathematic version of this, where we're looking at like what real world expenses are. So the biggest concern, I think, from admin PW was, in our opinion, generally speaking, as a city, we are understaffed in terms of manpower, and the manpower is, in many cases, when it comes to annual increases, a lot of times is under increased. It was kind of, it's just not how that's not how you treat people that work for your city, and it's not how you keep good people. So we need to address those things, and I'm very appreciative that the Parks and Planning Committee kind of took a similar approach, seemingly, where they're looking at items that we do need to make difficult cuts. I like free hot dogs as much as the next person, but the reality is, as Councilmember Galani said, we don't have revenues to support those things. We don't have revenues to support the employees that work for the city. We talk a lot about in our committee our reserve, which is, in my general opinion, outrageously overinflated, and that overinflation is due to many, many years of under maintaining things that were necessary and under staffing what we needed to have. So I think what we're doing here tonight is a great thing, in that we do need to have some difficult conversations. We do need to raise the alarms to our residents so they understand these things. I think, again, in my personal opinion, we are going to have to look at something down the road to pay for this tremendous parks and trail system that we have and maintaining all of these things. But we need to really genuinely look at what we're doing with our reserve and what we can do here, where I think Mr. Mabry might have a point in that we don't need to, slash some of these things with a machete. I'm not sure that we're doing that fully in all of these things. But we do need to make some changes. So I think the changes to reduce events and the food is a great change. I think looking at, some of the stuff we do in admin PW, like salt for the road, look at how much it costs us over 5 years. Sometimes we have a crazy year. We talked a lot about how we shouldn't probably budget for tremendous snowstorms and multiple tornadoes every year yet. We don't know that that's going to happen again. If it does start to happen, then we're going to have a bigger problem. So I think looking at this reserve throughout many, many meetings, we've suggested different people, myself included, have suggested different ideas to look at the reserve. The biggest thing I think we need to figure out, I would suggest, is from a priority list for our city, what do we need to do? I think Parks and Planning did a great job by saying we got to make some decisions here. I personally think we need to look at how we are staffed and how we compensate those people. And then we look at what services are necessary to operate a city before we're really doing anything outside of that. I mean, I certainly don't want to pick on the veterans. I think the Hometown Heroes thing is a great deal, but I mean, $7,500 for that seems like an awful lot of money when we can't pay our employees an appropriate amount of anything. And I understand sometimes these things come out of different budgets or whatever, but it's the same pool of money. And so I think, I think we need to look at these things, but I do think, if we're talking about $200,000 or whatever it is you guys need to balance this thing, that seems like a good way to give us a year to figure this thing out moving forward, just like we did with the capital improvement stuff. Came up with a pretty good system with that. Seems to work so far, I guess. But that's kind of how it goes. So I'm all for, I think we can go through each item if that's what you guys want to do, but a lot of these things seem like kind of no brainer stuff. I would also suggest $500 for computer systems is not, I don't know what that buys, like half of one monitor. I don't know what we're getting for that. So, some of these numbers, I know you guys are putting some stuff in here, but it's just like not realistic. A new computer is a couple grand.
So that said, with that specific one, we have in the budget this year to replace the remaining of the 2 parks employees and the other. It would really be for replacing, miscellaneous items. The 2 computers, unless there was a catastrophic failure of one of their devices, both should be replaced by January 1. Like relatively, like within the last 2 years.
So then everybody's got good stuff. We're not like,
Each year you can almost look at it for computers. Every 5 years, we replace laptops. It's a rotating schedule.
I would just say like things like that. Like, $500 for whatever we have, 26 employees does not seem like nearly enough money. And I understand it's just in one department, but still that's been more than that at my house. Well, I guess what I'm saying is, the 43 for option B, if it was, I guess technically it is possible, but if we could do everything that we did this year, keep the status quo as you're saying, I think that that's something we could do. We can also, get a few pieces out of this to start this conversation moving forward, rather than just kind of saying, hey, well, we're going to do what we did last year and we'll figure it out next year. I think we need to start figuring some of these things out for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you want to think about, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom and or Joe, but like this is giving you guys sort of final direction to put the real thing together.
That's correct. That's the whole idea, is to take this input tonight. I know there's a ton of different versions, but it's been kind of, with it being imbalanced, it's been a little tough to kind of carve it down and put it back in. That said, tonight, the idea is to get this collected feedback and then have a consolidated, here's one version, clean and simple. And then if there's obviously questions, the council has full discretion in changing it. That's their prerogative. That said, to pretty much reduce from 3 down to 1.
I think it's, I guess maybe I didn't really have more of a question. It was a very long statement and I apologize for the length, but the idea is, I think we're really trending in the right direction on this stuff. It's been a long time coming to get this thing, get our arms around this as a group. So I'm all for moving forward on this thing. And I think making tough decisions on hot dogs and different things is where we got to be.
Yeah. All right. So I was suggesting this to Tom here to maybe help us move along with this meeting here. I mean, we could go through each one of these items one by one, and you saw it took about 20 minutes to talk about hot dogs. So, I think that maybe what we could do is give everyone a chance to look at this here. And then what we're going to do page by page is we're going to stop at each page and say, okay, does anyone have anything here? Otherwise, if no one has anything specific to any item on that page, then we're assuming everybody's fine with what is that recommendation there. So we're only going to stop if someone either wants to have a discussion and change something from what is already there proposed. And I think that might help us move along a little bit more efficiently. Tom, how does that work for you?
That works fine. And I would just, so everyone's reading the format properly. I know it's somewhat jargled up too, because it's 3 different numbers here, but when you're looking at the document, option B was the first thing stated because that was where we started from, but really the option A was supposed to be, what was presented, because the department has prerogative to submit a balanced budget to the council. So that said, if the absolute toughest choices were made, that's what option A is, and that's a pretty big whiplash. Option B accounts for, maintaining everything like it is, and not really building all too much on it, but maintaining everything. And then this PMP added expenditures and PMP adjustments, those, and should have had /admin PW, but I didn't want to muddy the water further. Those are really incorporating feedback as much as we can, and then trying to get to that number, that getting it lower, but also trying to get to the 350 that would allow us to retain most services. I would almost look at the PMP recommended changes as the most updated notes on each row, and then just look at the difference between the PMP adjustments to balanced budget in parentheses A. That's going to show what was added back after committee review. And if there's any changes or questions, I think that would be a great way to start. And each one does have its own little definition, if you will, that could help explain it.
Okay. Does everyone understand that? Yeah, we're going to look at page 1 right now, and I'm going to give you a chance to look at it, and then I'm going to pause for a second here and then ask if anyone has anything related to any item on page 1. And again, like what Tom said, that PMP adjustment column, that's the final column. And if you want to understand what changed, go to the very far right column, which is the PMP recommended changes. So if you're fine with what's there, then you don't have to say anything. If there's something here that you disagree with or wish to change, then we'll entertain those remarks, and we'll do like what we did with that item just now that Councilmember Galani covered. So we can take a look at page 1 there and just see if you have anything here that you wish to change. Again, we'll just pause for a moment here, give everyone a chance, and then we'll see if anyone has anything. Starting to get a couple of folks looking up here, and just checking around the room to see if anybody's still reviewing any of the items here. We'll make sure we give you time. And I'm going to ask, anyone have anything on page 1 that they wish to discuss? I saw Councilmember Mabry and then Councilmember Farmer. So on page 1 and then Councilmember Dodwell. Councilmember Mabry, which item do you have that you wish to talk about? And sorry, we don't have a row number here, so you're going to have to point us to the title. Oh, okay. All right, hold off then on that. Councilmember Farmer.
Yeah, so I just had a question on the salary adjustment thing. I'm totally good with the 4% thing. I just wanted to make sure, is that 4% in general, so including the COLA, or is that just 4% on top of that?
That'd be 4% total with a 2.5% COLA and a 1.5% merit base increase.
Okay, and then does that number, I assume it would also include like if Paula were still here or what?
Yes, it does. So no, we don't know. So that a little different. If they were here, we would incorporate it, but really and that's broken out. That number is budgeted currently for that position at 90,000. So that's really
But that's include, like, it's not, we're not pretending that.
no, we're not pretending like that person exists. Yep.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that too. Yeah, I heard 2.8% is what the COLA number for 2026. So if you want to include merit, you do have to add whatever merit plus the COLA
Yes.
to determine what that number is. So right now at 4 means merit would be 1.2% plus the COLA, which is the 2.8. Councilmember Marshall, is that related to that item as well?
Yeah, I would just like to make sure, I know we have at least 4 new council people. Our role as council people will do the evaluation for the city administrator and city clerk. Our role as a council member is to give him a wage dollar to divide among based on performance and their caps of all the other staff. So it's not, everybody won't get that same level. That's the dollars that would be given to the administrator to work within the caps, that the employees that are at the cap would not get the same increases the new hire. So we don't get involved in all the detail. We do 2 people, we do their rates, and then the city administrator takes the dollar amount that we give for salaries and adjusts that based on individual performance. Thanks.
Thank you. So anything else on that item there? Councilmember Dodwell?
I was going to mention on, as much as I want the Hometown Hero activity to continue to go on.
Wait, if I could ask just, since we started out going down the path with the salary item here, let me see if we need to close that out, just if you don't mind holding, unless it's related to it. Okay, so anything else related to that first row item regarding the salary adjustments? All right, so Member Mabry, you had mentioned maybe making an adjustment to that. Okay, go ahead, speak to that and why you want to do that.
And I'd heard you offering that it's 2.8%.
Right.
I had also heard it say it's 2.8% last week.
Oh,
Now it came out today on something I found that it was 2.7%. So I'd like to err to the side of safety by 2.8% and offer that it should be 2.8% plus 1.5%, whatever that math works out to. And then that closes out that issue. 2.8 plus 1.5.
That'd be 4.2% total.
2.8 plus 1.5 is 4.3.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
A lot of math lately.
All right, so Councilmember Mabry, you're suggesting raising that amount there to include some additional flexibility on the merit side. Anyone else have any other comments related to that? Otherwise, we'll look for a motion. If you want to go ahead and make that motion to increase that to that or to any other number, this would be the time.
Motion for that line item.
Okay, so you're going to change that to 4.3 maximum.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Councilmember Dodwell, did you have a question? Okay, you're seconding it. So we got the motion on the floor. Councilmember Marshall?
Discussion?
Yes,
Because we're in a
discussion.
process of going over and over this. If we're going to do this, let's lock something down.
Yeah.
So we're not doing 6 more budget revisions. So if the motion is that we want to make it to 4.3, then that's what it should be. And we shouldn't come back to the next budget review and say, I want to change it to another 0.8 or another 0.5. So we've got to agree to a number. And again, it's not that everybody's getting that. It's just we're just giving the dollars. He can do it however he needs to do it. But I just don't want us to keep doing this every meeting.
Ideally, yeah, in the perfect world, right? But someone always could
Well,
bring something
if
up.
we agree that that's it. Let's
Yeah.
not do it.
Okay, so we have that motion on the floor. That is to increase it to 4.3 maximum there. Anyone else have anything else to say? Otherwise, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone abstain? Anyone oppose? Okay, thank you for that.
Mr. Mayor, can we have a second reading on that one line item?
Well,
I'm joking.
No. Oh, he's joking. Okay. All right. Good on that. So, okay, moving along. Anyone else have any comments related to any items on that first page? Now would be the time to propose any changes, suggestions. Councilmember Dodwell, which one do you wish to bring up? Thank you. Please go ahead. That, or I think these banners do go up twice a year, in May and then in November. So perhaps maybe it's just focusing on the November, which is where we have our program, might be an idea. All right, so Councilmember Bannick.
Being a veteran, I have to speak up for my fellow veterans. Maybe the city administrator can explain the cost to the family members who want to do this for their fallen.
Overall,
veterans,
yeah,
whatever.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Overall, they pay a slight, I think it's, Joey, if you could answer this, I think it's like half of the banner cost, I believe, or it's a very, what was that? $100 towards the
$100.
banner cost, which covers a good portion of it, but the city's really eating the cost for putting
Yeah.
them up. We put a lot of banners up on Manchester and
Okay.
Taylor. That's where.
And
the
is there?
comes. Yeah, so it happens annually. Every year they actually get the poster, if you will, the signage back if they they can put it back up. But then they would have to re-engage in the program. So it
Just for your information, my wife did that for me. Paid the initial fee, but we've never been charged any additional fees for the next year. So I'm not sure if this is an isolated case with me or if this is something that is happening with other veterans or other families also. But perhaps we could, because my wife's willing to pay that, and these other people are willing to pay it for their grandparents, parents, whoever, brother, sister, who served. But yeah, maybe we're missing some income coming in to provide for this service.
I can check that.
Yeah.
They should. My
We're
understanding is
willing
it's
to
annual.
pay. I'm not. Go ahead.
Speak to it a little bit further.
First of all, I have to correct myself. We did raise the price to $150.
That's fine.
And the reason we don't charge for the reposting of the banners is that the program hasn't been as successful as we had hoped. And so each time we get a new banner, a new person, new veteran wanting a banner, it would not necessarily fill the street. And so we've continued just to post the banners from previous years so we have what I would consider an attractive display on Manchester Road.
Okay. It's appreciated, but people in my position are willing to pay that annual fee for that poster to go up. We're not being contacted apparently. So anyway, it's interesting to me, $7,500 here, $20,000 or $5,000 for hot dogs and stuff like that. And I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant, which is going to take us off of the issue here. But just a little bit of an observation for me as a new city councilman is that I'm amazed how we like to spend money on the city council and for perhaps projects and issues that we shouldn't be paying for. You know, we spent $1 million for J-turns on a state road maintained by the state. We spent $1.3 million on a roundabout on a state road maintained by the state. We're paying $1 million over 5 years for deer calling, which really is a state issue. And when my constituents come to me and ask me, you know, why are we spending $3.3 million? You know, we're spending $300,000 for a cabin, which is 50% original cabin, and the rest of it, who knows where it came from. And then we're talking about, you know, $5,000 in hot dogs. You know, that's not where our focus should be. Our focus should be on these big items that we seemingly make decisions on without, I mean, everybody wants traffic safety, especially me, but those roads are maintained by a state which has ample finances. The county is broke. County is broke. They don't have money for Old State. You know, we're looking for $250,000 for the improvement for the roundabout at Old State and Ridge, you know, and but when you talk about $3.3 million of city money that is going to try and resolve some of these state issues, that kind of, I mean, that's shocking to me as a new city councilman. And then we're arguing about $5,000 in hot dogs. You know, it's hard to, I proposed this at the last admin public works and went over like a lead balloon. So, but my proposal was that we do celebrate Wildwood every 5th year. And I hesitate to bring that up because, I mean, Mr. Galani, you know, suggested going from 4 to 3 concerts, and there was some, you know, pushback, and I get it, you know, but when you're spending $100,000 a year for Celebrate Wildwood, it's hard to celebrate it if we can't pay our staff, if we can't keep our staff because we're not paying them, if we're not making the necessary improvements for things like water erosion or things like putting in a roundabout at Old State. You know, those are the big ticket items. Those are the things that we need to focus on more, in my opinion. And you know, $7,500 for the banners. You know, I mean, compare big scheme of things. You know, I would like to see them go out every year. There's people, you know, that's an important thing for them in this community. You know, because their loved ones served and perhaps died, you know, serving this country, and they want to see them being honored, and so they can take their grandchildren and say, hey, there's grandpa. And so that's all I have to say. Sorry about my rant. And
no, I really appreciate it. I think this is a difficult conversation to have because we're going through items here, and you know, some of these items, you know, yeah, they could be small and, you know, sometimes even feel trivial, right? When you're talking about hot dogs, I mean, then in the grand scheme of things, right? I mean, even the hometown heroes, I mean, these are people who sacrificed for our country. I think the least we could do is put the banners up for them. And I feel terrible already that, you know, we have to collect money to pay for the banner, but I know that things cost money. So, I mean, we could certainly keep looking to find opportunities, but maybe I think the other thing we need to keep in mind is we don't want to lose what makes Wildwood special, right? I mean, some of the things that we do are why people love Wildwood. All right. Okay, thank you. All right, we'll keep going. Anything else on the first page? All right, so with that, then we'll go on to the second page here. Councilmember Mabry, yeah. Well, I think that only we'll take motions whenever there's changes, and then we'll do like a final motion that is anything that we didn't already discuss to just collectively cover it all. And so, yeah, we did have that motion for that one. Did we take a vote on that? Yeah, we did. Okay. All right, so we'll continue with page 2. So I'm going to pause here and give you a chance to look at page 2, and then we'll revisit. I'm just going to look around. When you're done looking at that, if you kind of give me a sign, then I'll know, who's still looking and who's ready. Okay, how we doing here? Anyone have any items on this page that you would like to discuss? Councilmember Albers.
I'm gonna tackle Celebrate Wildwood. I think it's a event that, like the mayor just said, makes this city special. And I think it's really grown into something superior. This event this past year was tremendous. And I'd hate to see us lose momentum in that kind of thing that really is positive for the city. I can remember going to one of them in the early stages, and it was pretty lame. It was weak. I didn't come back for a long time. It really turned into a special thing to celebrate this great city. And I think the parade is something that I finally was in one, and it was pretty special for the residents along the way. So I'm in favor of looking for ways to keep going with that. And maybe there's again, sponsorships, like, somebody sponsoring the parade, or I don't know what the biggest cost of the parade is. Maybe that would be something we should discuss.
It's the golf carts.
Golf cart. We could walk, yeah. Some people do.
And how much are we talking about in golf carts?
It's like, I would say 6,000, 55,000, not 55, 5,500, sorry.
So maybe we kind of have an idea. You think that could save some money with that if we found an alternative to the golf carts? Because Councilmember Cran's, that golf cart was dead when they got in there. So.
One thing that was discussed was potentially having like and this was at the committee, was having, if the parade proceeds, having a, like almost like a hay bale truck or something like that, carrying like a float.
And have all the council members
Transporting the
on
council
that?
members, yeah. That was an idea. It would take some coordination to figure out what that is and who we elicit the help from, but it's an idea.
Or what's the biggest golf cart size? Maybe we just get fewer and we have like big ones like, I don't know, 6 passenger or something like that.
I would like to, through our experiences, I guess Joe would be the only one to remember. At one point, they got a trolley rented for all the council people to be inside it, but the windows were all darkened, so you could not see anybody. So I would suggest you do something like that. Don't get something you can't see. Who do that?
That defeats the purpose. Yeah, go ahead. Well, it might be worth it. I mean, there might be some maybe some can choose to walk if they wish and some could ride. So it's a little bit of both. That's probably a good idea. Maybe we can minimize the number of golf carts. I know folks love the golf carts, but if we could either reduce how many we have to get or what do you think? Is that something that is feasible?
Mr. Vunish, do they, like, if we were to get a lighter amount of golf carts, is there a minimum? I know the total, but the amount of golf carts we need, do they have, like, would they send us a couple golf carts, or do we have to have a minimum?
I don't know. We've generally ordered what we believe necessary for the grand marshals, the council members, including the mayor, and then members of the Wildwood Celebration Commission. So from that perspective, we've just ordered based upon the number of people that have committed to participate. We could certainly investigate that.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe we don't have to get specific in any motion saying about the golf carts. Maybe we just, focus on the budgetary item, the number here, and then that gives the department flexibility to be creative and figure out something. Maybe they get a couple of big golf carts or maybe they just get 1 or 2 or 3 for some special, grand marshals or whoever it is. And, we can do some combination of things. I think that's a way that the council probably can help with saving some money for it if that's a big piece of the expense. Councilmember Dodwell.
I was just going to make a motion that we go with what the Planning and Parks Committee had put together of a $70,000 budget for Celebrate Wildwood. And then we can look at alternatives for some of the things that we do. I know in the past, we'd also had an antique car group come through and we rode in those cars. So there are alternatives.
All right, so then if there's no change, we'll make this as part of the collective motion there. Councilmember Mabry. Oh, okay. Now, one item I do want to revisit here just for a moment here is related to the concert series and the motion that was made before, which was scheduling 3 concerts for next year instead of the 4. I was just speaking with the city administrator and perhaps do you want to share, is there a possibility like that you can maybe still make it work with 4 with the reduced budget number because we've eliminated the food expenses?
Yes, so that was the quick discussion here and sorry to return to it, but that was what we were trying to present, was one or two options. We either reduce the number of total number of concerts, or we would reduce or remove or eliminate the giving out of free items. So that said, I mean, at the amount 60 or 65, 60 would be a little tough, but if we were at 65, I do believe, and the Department of Parks and Planning could give us additional detail, but with the expenditures that I've reviewed over the last couple of years, that would be right in line if we kept everything the same, but did not pay for the actual food itself. It would equal about 20,000 in savings. And we'd initially anticipated that 85,000 would cover the entirety of it. So at 65, I think we could do it. It would be tight, but it could be done.
What do you think, Director Vunich? If we made a motion, if we can get a motion to reconsider that motion just to make it focus more on the dollar figure, I think it gives you flexibility to look at. Maybe you could still pull off 4, but we'd still save the money.
Didn't the council already make their decision on this?
Well, yeah, that's why it would have to be reconsidered. But I'm thinking that, if we focus on the monetary figure, it gives the department the flexibility to be creative. Otherwise, the motion will stand as it is, and then that's it. There's 3 concerts. But according to what the city administrator said, it's possible they still could pull off 4 with the same savings.
In our planning and zoning, or planning and parks meeting, it was discussed that the attendees in the July event were much lower than the other events due to the heat.
I mean, if that's the position folks still feel, and I guess we could leave it as is, but I was just trying to look for the most flexibility here.
From the department's perspective, whatever city council decides, we'll implement. If it's a cap in terms of the money spent, we'll work within that cap and not exceed it. If it's 3 concerts and there's a limitation on the amount of money spent for the 3 concerts, we'll do 3 concerts at that amount.
Yeah, and the only reason I think I bring it up is I remember when we cut the recycling event and then the calendars, we got a lot of folks that brought up that they wanted their calendars and then the recycling event. And so I feel like we're a little bit locked in if we say there's just 3, but if we say, spend up to 65,000, then that gives them the flexibility to look into things. So the motion, then we would just need a motion, since everyone voted in favor, a motion to reconsider.
Rescind the previous, yeah.
Okay, what's that motion?
Motion to rescind the component of moving from 4 to 3, but then replacing that with just a budgetary number of 65,000.
Okay, so you're making the motion there. Is there a second on that to rescind? Anyone wishes to rescind a second on that? All right, made by Councilmember Mabry. All right, all those in favor of that motion to rescind, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? Okay, so that motion's rescinded. Can we get a new motion then on the floor with just the approval? Well, we may not need it because this is already part of it. This is the collective. Yeah,
And in theory, it's removing the food component of it. That adds up to 20,000. The initial, needed amount was 85. That would equal 65. So the math adds up, but a motion would assist in that.
okay, so you're asking still for a motion just to motion that would be that the city would eliminate the expenses on food items. Made by Councilmember Farmer, or is that a?
Well,
Oh,
close.
okay.
I'm gonna propose something. I guess since we're reconsidering it, I would say this. If we want to go with a flat budget amount, I think that's fine. But I would really strongly encourage that what we try to do is make the best possible events that we can. We're going to put 4 events in, and one of them is going to be, pardon my French, sort of shitty. I don't understand why we would do that. If we're pulling back some services from the citizens, which the food thing is fine, then, we can utilize certain budgets to make these events better if that's what we want to do. But if we're just adding more events, we're adding risk. I mean, the July one is lightly attended. We do have weather concerns. I just think, and we have a limited staff. Like I love the events as much as everybody else, but we just can't do this stuff like every other week. It's not sustainable. So my motion would be if we want to have a fixed number, I'm happy to hear what Tom's number would be, but I would advocate that we make that number make the best events we possibly can. And that maybe doesn't mean adding a fourth one back in.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, if you want to maintain what we currently have, the event we currently have without the food, to reproduce that, I mean, you're looking at like 65,000 and that'd be right on the nose for 4 events. I mean, it'd be really close. That said, if you take out the food component, and some of the electricity costs too, that's the other component too, that's going to be reduced. It should be at least in a small sense because we have electricity running to the Village Green site. I think we could have, and unless Director Vunich disagrees here, I think we could do 4 events at what we're currently offering, but just without the food. It would just be water that we would provide.
Maybe we could have 3 really good events instead of 4 so-so events, and reduce the stress on the staff and reduce the stress on our budget.
Well, I think if we focus on that, just making the motion or keeping it with the budget, that gives the flexibility. So we're not just tonight locked in. Yeah.
Sure.
Otherwise, we have to come back and change it.
All right, well, then we'll go with the budget number.
Okay, so with that being the budget number, then you still want that motion regarding
Yep, and we've already, the portion about the food items has already been covered. This would just be locking in the 65,000, and the cap has already, the number of events has already been eliminated,
But
so.
if we're reconsidering state the whole thing.
The motion that rescinded was only the number of events, but I think it would be fine if we do both. It would be a good coverage. I mean, that said, with that rescinding motion, what Dr. Rambo had mentioned was that they were rescinding half of it practically, was the part where it's 3 versus 4 events. I think it would be nice though, if we could just have a nice clean motion, we could definitely use that too.
Do you want to go ahead and make that motion? Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, so I think the motion, so what is the budget number? We want 65,000?
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay, so my motion is going to be that the Music on Main Street series is not to exceed $65,000. And it will pull back, as we already did, the food and free food and drinks. That makes sense?
Okay. There's a second on that. Made by Councilmember Rambo. So we have the motion on the floor. Is there discussion? All right. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I didn't get that at all. I got maximum $65,000 budget, maximum 4 events. And if you can stick food in those 4 events, 65,000, you're fine. If not, you're hauled on the carpet. If you need to cut back to 3 to keep the food in, you can do that too. Gives the staff the option.
Oh,
And you're right, Mr. Mabry, of what was written in the document was kind of prefacing this in a question of like, we have, almost a fork in the road. We can do 3 the right way, or we can do 4. We can do 4 without the food and drink. That was the idea behind what was written in the document. But I think what the motion is stating here is that we're going to lock it in not to exceed 65,000 for our Music on Main series. If that turns out to be 4, great. If it doesn't, it can be a minimum of 3. And then the other side of that would be that the elimination of food and drink during these events for free. It doesn't mean they won't provide them. We'll find some vendors to fill in the gaps, but we will not be paying for those.
that?
It sounds like that's the motion that's being made. Then we'll have to vote on that.
Yep. All right. So with the motion on the floor, any questions on that? Anyone needed repeated? Otherwise, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain?
No.
All right, we have 1 no. A motion still passes. We'll move forward. Any other items on this
I'm
page?
sorry. I'm sorry. Who seconded that? I didn't catch that. I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
All right, yes, you have one on this page. Go ahead.
Yes, and that's we need to have that discussion too. So this was one we wanted to call out. So right now, the supplies document, the budget, the account pays for, think about it, the shirts that we purchase for events, it pays for, for the most recent Shivering Shadows, the decorations that we put out on the trail during the event to give it the festive atmosphere. All of that is included under the supply item. That said, with this cut, we would have to consider potentially removing an event or two from the repertoire to keep up. Or we could put it back. Right now, I would say to maintain every event within our event schedule for fiscal year 2025, we would need about $60,000 to maintain it. It is. Well, it's not, the city's paying for it, but they pay a small fee of it back. It's not getting, you're not getting a one-to-one coverage. I mean, we've got Music on Main, not Music on Main, sorry. It depends because the supplies kind of go into almost every event. I mean, you got the Easter egg hunt. You used to have Frozen Feet. That actually creates an automatic savings because we used to purchase, like a large jacket type item for the individual participants. That will actually produce some savings. Then you've got, our Green Rock Challenge, Trail Challenge, which that one is a free event, no registration. They have to register, but they don't have to pay for it. Tour to Wildwood. We've got quite a few that are kind of sprinkled throughout the entire year, which typically Plein Air is another one that people sign up and typically pay a nominal fee, but they do get things in return. They get to participate in the activity and then obviously the t-shirt as well. Yeah. Feel free, Jim. I would say yes, but we might not see participation levels that we want them.
We have increased fees across the board. They're no longer nominal. If you talk to participants, they'll explain why they don't believe they're nominal anymore. I believe for Tour to Wildwood, we charged $40 and then $50 for race day registration. And that included a few snacks at the start, the shirt that you have to give at events, everybody does, and then the lunch. So again, the council directed us several years ago to raise fees, and we have. And they're not nominal any longer. The only nominal fee I would say is the early childhood recreation program. That's $5. But again, that generally covers the cost of the snack and the drink.
All right, Councilmember McCutcheon, anything else?
Jim, so just go, we did a minute ago with the dollar figure and say,
I think this is one of those things where we can say up to that dollar figure, but I think it would be good to have the discussion about which events, get from the director's perspective to which events would be eligible. I think Frozen Feet in and of itself helps because all of those costs associated with that event, I mean, that saves us probably less than 10,000, but it's thousands of dollars that we're saving there. So it really probably comes down to like one event, or it's either you do all the events the same in a good way that we've been doing it, or you potentially remove an event that we've been doing to make sure the other ones are retained. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, at the Planning and Parks Committee meeting, the last meeting we had, Planning and Parks, the department had on the agenda the actual schedule of events for 2026. It requested a postponement so as we could do the budget and then adjust the schedule of events to the budget. So we've not set any events this year other than now the Music on Main Summer Concert Series.
Thank you. Councilmember Galani, did you have something related to this? Do you have as well to this item?
Mine, yes. I mean, mine, I think, was similar to, I think, what Mr. Hutchins said. To maybe make the motion to go with the budget stated amount and let the department figure out what they want to eliminate. I think like we just did, correct? So,
yes.
Yeah. I don't know if the council really needs to vote on what
Yeah, I would prefer we just kind of stay at a certain level. Otherwise,
Right. Too many
we could
hands.
determine, we could be making decisions on hot dogs versus brats tonight.
Yep.
So we get too much into the weeds. Yeah, so, but I think you get my point that I think we have to allow the department to give them that flexibility. Councilmember Galani.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that that's fine. And I think there should also be the direction that we are allocating said budget and giving the department the ability to decide on which events. But I think with that being said, I think the directive from the council ought to be stated that the goal is to mitigate the expenses to the highest degree possible. And that I don't think, when you talk about Music on Main, that is a concert that we bring in, or the summer concert series where we have the band and then people can come and bring their food and drink and everything. But the Frozen Feet, that is an expensive endeavor with the jackets and all of that. Those types of events, while they might be fun and great and everybody loves them that does them, it's still affecting a very small portion of the community and it's a great expense to the city. So I think any amount of money that can be saved from that budget that can be carried over into the next year or go into the miscellaneous account, I think would be helpful as a directive, as opposed to saying, here's this set amount of money, go spend all of it. And if there's extra, then do an extra event at the end of the year. So I think we just have to get really diligent on cutting back. And so, it's just something that it's going to take a few years down the road until we're at a point of no turning back and we're out of money and we're out of revenue, but we're going to get there. So we've got to make sure that we're focused on those dire situations today, I think.
Director Lynch.
Again, to city council and particularly the planning and parks committee, eventually you will see the revised schedule of events. And so the events won't be advertised until the planning and parks committee makes its recommendation relative to them. And then that recommendation is forwarded to city council. So rest assured, you'll know the number of events. And this year we'll do our best to put some kind of general figure cost in association with them. And that way you can see how we've allocated the events as well as the cost. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so with that, then if there's no change, then will just do this as part of the overall motion with the amount that's specified here.
And
Okay,
it's at 45 is the recommended range based off the meeting we had.
all right, then anything else on this page? Otherwise, we're going to move on to the next page, which would be page 3, and that will give you a chance again to review this page. It has a combination of parks and public works items.
I was just gonna say, I had a resident just email asking if any council members that are speaking during our discussion can turn their microphones on and talk clearly into, because they're trying to watch and they can't hear.
Sure. All right, I'm just looking here to see if we have folks that are still reviewing here, so if you're okay, I think looks like we've got most folks that have completed reviewing there. I'm just checking to see, Councilmember Farmer, you still reviewing there? You good? Councilmember Dodwell, you good? Okay. So it looks like everyone, is hopefully Councilmember Marshall, you still need more time? Okay. All right. So we're going to open it up for this page, page 3. If anyone has any items related to page 3 that you wish to suggest a change to, this would be the time. All right, Councilmember McCutcheon, which item are you referring to?
The community garden, can somebody explain to me how that works? Do the gardeners pay for the space that's there?
They do.
What the gardeners pay for, does it cover all the expenses, or does the city have to pick in some money?
We do provide for the compost, and I think we do some general maintenance, even though we have seen, I think this year, a slight decrease in what we've typically spent. But Mr. Boone is a little bit more familiar with the operations.
We charge each gardener $55 for their plot. There's 140 gardeners. So roughly speaking, we collect about $7,000. What we do is we purchase the compost and topsoil. We also maintain the facility at the start and finish. As Mr. Lee mentioned, I think this year we saw a reduction. We had great turnout at the gardener work days, which helped us save the money.
All right, Councilmember Crayons.
So how many people use the garden?
We have 140 active gardeners now. We have about 80 on the waiting list.
Could we increase the cost of the fee to cover some of the additional expense we're incurring?
Certainly.
What would you think would be reasonable?
Well, that's probably a good question for the gardeners, and we have all of their emails, so we could certainly ask them what they think.
Well, $55 seems to me kind of should be more, I guess, is what I'm saying. Is that something well, you're trying to cut costs, aren't we? And this is more of an inclusive group of people. It's like swimming passes. It only goes out to a few people that benefit from it. And so it's in that category, right?
Well, certainly if we have 35,000 residents, 140 only benefit from it.
And you got 80 that want to get in.
So
I would look at increasing the fee if we could. I'm not going to make a motion or anything, but there's something there that you could probably reduce costs for the city.
before the end of the year, we meet with the volunteer gardener managers. There's about 5 of them that volunteer to help manage the garden. So Department of Planning and Park staff isn't out there every day. So we can certainly ask them what they think would be a reasonable increase to maintain the interest and allow the people that want to be there to be there regardless, let's say, their circumstance.
Next.
Thank you.
All right. Related to the garden at this time?
Certainly, and we've offered some incentives. Each year we have an arrangement with Circle of Concern, and the excess produce, if we exceed a certain level, we give a deduct. That's why it's $55. Last year, I think we provided 600 pounds of fresh produce to Circle of Concern, which serves West County residents, including Wildwood. We can certainly stop that.
Looks like right now, no change then to the budgeted amount there on the column.
And I just want to make a quick note,
Yep.
if your permission, Mayor. Just so we all know too, what we're seeing in this chart, but also just when we see the expenditures listed in our accounting software, this is truly representing the expenditure. It doesn't take into account the net cost of the city. So after accounting for that, let's just say the 140 different gardeners paying their fee, it's actually like 50-50, the city splitting this cost. It's about $7,700 that we get in revenue. So that 15,000 is total. Subtract the 77 from it. That's what the city's actually paying. And this year we've spent a lot less, honestly. It's been the work days have been very successful. Yes, that's typically yes. Not this year. This year it's a little less than $2,000 if I remember correctly from the last time I checked it. It's not much, but that's more so that is for a little bit of maintenance here, a little bit of maintenance there, and doing compost. But think about pulling weeds and just making it beautifying the overall area back there.
All right. Anything else on this page here? Otherwise, we'll continue to move forward here. We'll see none, then we'll move on to the next page. All right, we'll give you a chance again to review page 4. We're getting close to the end here. There's a total of 5 pages of items. So we're on page 4 right now. I'm going to pause here and then I'll just look around here to see if you're all ready to discuss. Let me see if, does anyone need any more time related to this page? Okay. Well, all right, this time we'll entertain any remarks or questions regarding any of the items here. Councilmember Marshall.
I don't disagree with it. I'm just curious, after our discussion about our lobbyists over the years, that we've just decided to take it out completely, not look at changing lobbyists, and maybe there's no reason to have any. But over the years, we've done an RFP, we've had different lobbyists, and I just really never knew who did he report back to. He'd come to the meeting once or twice a year, but I really never saw any engagement as far as what we as a city or as 17 elected people could do to support anything for the state. It appears that that's not all working, and I'm not against taking the 31,000. I just questioned suddenly after doing that, without questioning it the last, at least my 3 years of questioning it, this particular one, is this just the way to do it? Is it, I'm okay taking that 31,000 out, but do we or do we not need any representation in Jeff City?
So the idea in bringing that up was not even necessary, and the idea was to call it out tonight. It was not included in the Planning and Parks Committee, but then there was discussion of whether or not we need that, or if we would like to use it on an as needed basis, almost have like a way to call someone in where you're not paying that retainer each year. That said, I think we would want to, if we're actually going to take that out, we would probably need to do a little bit more of an analysis. That was the discussion tonight. I mean, I brought it up so we would make sure that we looked at it. We had every avenue to replace, but overall, quite frankly, next year there could be a couple things on the docket, but and where he reports to, every council member is able to call Jake at any time. The mayor can call Jake. That said, typically he's sending reports to me and then giving me updates each week. Meets with some of the directors when it's pertinent, but overall it's more so focused in on that erosion control. And then when these bigger items like it really is kind of one-offs. And from my opinion, with the budget item, that was a big goal that we wanted to have. But when it comes down to like the grocery tax we had, I mean, he's able to go in and then give a statement on behalf of the city at that public hearing because he's in Jeff City and we're not. So there is the one benefit there where I would say it would be very helpful to have that individual down there, but that's something too we could give a call to the municipal league. The one thing is it is kind of pros and cons situation because he's doing an adequate job of getting back to us, getting information to us, and providing a pretty. Each week I pass along his report of the bills he's tracking that are relevant to the city, and it's nice to be able to have that voice to be able to go in, but we haven't seen the return on the erosion funding, et cetera. So it's just more so bringing it up for discussion. And, usually we review that agreement in December. So I wanted to make sure it was on everyone's radar, even if we do end up retaining it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I just want to speak a little bit about that because I think, the benefit that we have had is that the legislative consultant provides us with eyes and ears in Jeff City that I think we would lose completely not having anyone there watching out for us. And then, while there are other avenues, they're not customized specific to us. So I think, we've had some work going on regarding the erosion. But yeah, the tax, the grocery tax and other items. I mean, I think that's when, we've even, at times even gone ourselves to speak, but when we're not there, that's what the legislative consultant's job is, to speak there on behalf of the city of Wildwood. Chesterfield has their own legislative consultant, and I think a few other cities do as well. So I do feel like we kind of go blind now if we go completely where we just drop that. And I think we need to still continue to look at having that voice that we've been working so hard to build up in Jeff City. So I would love to see how we can entertain revisiting this. Any other questions or comments related to this item?
I was going to bring. Sorry,
Councilmember Farmer.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I mean, certainly it was frustrating with the erosion funding not coming in for the last 3 years. I have spoken to Jake quite a bit about that and some other items. I was down for the grocery thing. And I don't know that there's anything Jake could have done to help secure that funding more than he did. And along with the mayor, I mean, my opinion is if we don't have someone like Jake in our current configuration, we don't have a voice, period, in that building. So we need to have somebody advocating for us, and currently we have a lobbyist. Better than nothing.
Councilmember Marshall.
So should we leave the money in and just put in the plans to do an RFP and to see what type of support we can get? Not necessarily renew his, but look, I mean, some of these other ones who are using it, they can represent two cities, maybe for a lot less money. I don't know, but I just think if you take it out completely, it's gone. And then we'll come back and say, then unfortunately, it could be a lot higher. If we say we're just not going to renew with Jake and do an RFP for it, put the time period out there. I mean, they'll go back in session, January. But at that particular point, maybe that's too late. I just think it's one of those things that I don't think we know enough about whether and how much support we need there. Maybe Jake's not the right guy. I don't know that.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Having been on the committee that engaged Jake and the longest person here, we had a prior individual that was charging us 3 times the amount that you see here on an annual basis, and essentially doing nothing. He wasn't providing the weekly reports back to the city administrator. So from the bang for our buck perspective, Jake has done, I think, a stellar job. While we didn't get what we wanted for the last several years for erosion control, he has enabled us to have a voice on a lot of different things that have assisted with what we've needed. So I concur. How many years have we had Jake now? 3 or 4?
I think this is going to be going on 4.
This will be his 4th year. Maybe we put on our radar that prior to our 5th year with Jake, we go out to bid once again, and the council committee appointees or whoever want to have select a new representative. But I agree with Councilmember Farmer. If we don't have a voice out there, then there's going to be somebody that's going to say, well, I need this money more for this activity. Jake was helpful also in the county tax issue as well, and making sure that we continue to get that. So I would like to keep this number in there.
In that case, could we go, with your permission, Mayor, if that's the wish of the council, could we go ahead and get just a motion to make sure to lock that in, to keep that service, whether or not be
31,000.
at 31,000 is anticipated for 2026?
Motion made by Councilmember Dodwell. You spoke to it. Do you want to make or? Okay. And then I need a second. I see Councilmember Ottenberg with his hand up. So we have a motion on the floor, and that's again a motion to allocate the amount to 31,000.
That's correct.
For consultant costs. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? That motion passes. Any other items on this page that anyone wishes to speak about? I don't see any others. So with that, then we can move on to the next page. I'll give you again a moment to look at it. It is page 5. All right, just checking to see if anyone's still reviewing any of the items here. We'll give you some time. Otherwise, we'll open it up to see if you have any questions or changes related to any items on this page. Okay, we'll give you a little more time. Right, again, just checking. How are you, Councilman McCutcheon? You all good now? All right, anyone else need more time? Otherwise, yeah, let's entertain any questions or changes. Go ahead, Councilmember Farmer.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have an issue with the dollar amount, but I'm a little confused because we've got in the planning, the special event section, we've got an amount for like the boards and commissions appreciation, which seems like something we do every year. So I don't know that that necessarily should be a special event. And then we also have, at least the description here, I think is like the third part where we're talking about the Route 66 thing. So I'm just kind of,
Are you talking about the last one, commissions?
no, like it's the third, yeah, special events. So it's 52,
Oh.
I think it's 64. I guess I'm just curious how much we're planning on spending on this Route 66 thing, because I think it's in here in like 3 different places.
Well, I mean, we don't have any current, Joe, if you have anything planned, I mean, the only thing we have right now is a scavenger hunt that would be released, but the idea is to have something set aside in 2026 because inevitably it's going to be the 100th anniversary. We're
Yeah,
trying
no,
to,
I'm all for setting something aside. I guess I'm just saying like, I don't
Trying
know
to
why
find
it's in
small-
3 different places. Like, let's set something aside, then we know what it is.
in that case, we can go in and I can identify, I can go back to those 3, strip it down to its bare bones without the Route 66. And if you'd like, we can have that added into just special events under parks or have it under special events. And
I think it's maybe more of just a housekeeping thing. Like, I'm not telling you to take any money out. I'm just saying like the board and commissions dinner, which we do every year. I don't know if that should be considered a special event. A 100th anniversary of, the Great American Highway certainly sounds like a special event. And so it would make sense to me to have a specific line item that says that, because I guess my thought is if we're moving forward to next year, when we're doing 2027, I don't think there's going to, like this year we had the 30th anniversary for Celebrate Wildwood. That is different than every other year. Now we're going to have the 100th anniversary. Like, if we're just moving, a lot of times we're just moving budget items forward. So we want to be very specific as to why we're doing that. So that would I think it's more of just a housekeeping item than take money out. I just noticed it was in here, I think 3 times.
we can go in and that'll be addressed. We'll figure out a way to present it clearly with Route 66 directed items.
All right, any other items related to this page? Okay, seeing none, then that actually concludes all the items. So I believe then I think right now would be make a motion for approval of the items excluding those that we've already voted on. So a motion to approve the items as presented, excluding those that have already been voted on separately. So Councilmember Preston, second. Councilmember Roblesky, any other discussion on this motion on the floor?
I just have a clarification.
Sure.
Which column are we voting on? Option B with the changes?
No, right now it's PMP, the whole
Adjustment.
PMP adjustments is the one we've been reviewing. The one where we've
Right.
reduced it from this whole.
Okay.
Well, this is for everything except for those items that we already voted on separately. Because those were modified tonight. Yeah. Those will maintain their modifications, right? And then everything else, this is just
I'd hate to think that I'm going to have to abstain because I figured we were working on option B, which is to hold the level of services to Wildwood for next year as we have for this year and taking any that we need from reserves. Or we go to the austere position of column A or option A, and we don't take anything out of reserves. I thought that's what the whole point of this was. But now we're going to be taking some Bs and some As and some greens.
So the way it is right now, we're going to focus on
Column G.
it's the one that it's got a header of P and P adjustments.
Do those adjustments still provide for all of option B?
No, it does not. So that the ones that we went through that were, so it does provide for the change in the personnel since we called that one out specifically.
That's a B.
Yep. Well, it actually went above what B had provided for.
Tonight, yes. It
Yeah.
went
Yep. So
that's a B.
Yep. Then also, I'll just go through the ones that we covered just during this meeting here. There was special events, got raised back to 25. That was a B. 1 second here. Concert series, it's at 65 versus 85. Celebrate Wildwood was locked in at 70,000. 1 second here. Consulting costs at 31,000. That really, and yeah, that everything else would be consistent with PMP adjustments, right?
So that's the motion that's on the floor right now. Of course, if that motion fails, we can then come back with another motion. If you'd like to make that. But otherwise, that would be right now what we would vote on. Anyone have any other questions or discussion or seeking clarity? All right, I don't see any, so we'll try again with a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain?
Abstain.
All right, we have one abstention. All right, the motion passes. So that covers these items here under the sheet that have been provided. Now, again, this is a work session, so we'll come back to council. Ideally, we shouldn't have to revisit, but certainly understand if something gets identified. All right, back to you, City Administrator.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So now we'll jump over. That was our general fund, which should be the most time intensive. That said, did want to go now through our capital improvement sales tax fund. So we, over the last year, and this was something that the last city council meeting in December of last year, we had determined and discussed that there were quite a few too many projects in our 5-year capital improvement plan that, quite frankly, not all of them were funded. And a pretty firm directive was given that, hey, we'll approve this. At least this is the recollection from the department. We will approve this as is tonight, but over the next year, the goal will be to get the expenditures related to capital improvements under control and get them, pretty much categorized out so we can reprioritize, but really kind of reconfigure the entire thing. That said, in the budget documents that were provided. This did not change from option A or option B. Those two options were really more relevant to the operating budget. That said, what was provided in the full budgetary documents were really wanted to focus in on the unfunded needs list. I have some printouts here, but this was the same that was provided, other than two little notes about the Green Pines third node. I did want to add in that there was some slight changes there that was brought up that I wanted to make sure to include the full details. So I'll pass this on out. Unless anybody, does anybody not have a copy? I have copies here to go. Okay, perfect. Mary, you mind giving me a second to pass these out? Yep.
Ward 5.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It's your backyard.
Okay, so this was included under option A, under the capital improvement sales tax fund. It was the last document with it. What's been passed out tonight is a copy of the unfunded needs list. And the idea here is that what we provided in the 5-year and the 2026 capital improvement plan, it is a balanced budget. That said, there were projects that had to be postponed or cut. Tonight, the department wanted to make sure we called those out, create this unfunded needs list. And if there were items that the council still wants to make sure we hit at, that there would be a motion to entertain making sure those stay in. But that said, the idea is to keep, quite frankly, I'll just kind of tie this back. Our capital improvement sales tax fund is directly tied to a 1/2 cent capital improvement sales tax that we have here in the city, and it generates typically about $3 million. We really offset that amount with grant funding and then some interest income. It's not very much, but it's a little bit, enough to get us over the hump. But really, if a project doesn't have grant funding, you can almost think of it, each year we only have about $3 million to set aside for any capital improvement project, which that covers things along the lines of the J turns, the left turn lanes, the Village Green, the Manchester Taylor project. It also has to include anything we have to do with stormwater. I mean, that includes the costs that would be associated with our stormwater tax. Not stormwater tax, but stormwater projects we have. So that said, all of that included, we've got just too many projects over the course of 5 years. So we did in the committee meetings that Administration Public Works, we also had this at Planning and Parks. We went through a process to create almost like a matrix that would grade these individually, and then slowly but surely kind of have some filter to the top, have some in the mid-range, and then really using the master plan, using the strategic plan, and using cost. It factors in quite a few different scenarios, and it goes through each one and try to bring some math or just some general statistics to our current plan to just bring it down to size. Quite frankly, if these cuts weren't made, then we would be looking at a negative fund balance in the next couple of years within this fund. So that said, that's why these projects are being proposed for being cut. The department's available to answer any questions. I did want everyone to review this. The only changes tonight would include there's a brief description change within the Green Pines Park third node. And I just want to make sure I called that to everyone's attention. It had some additional resident input and wanted to make sure I clarified that public input process that occurred at the beginning of the process. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to open up to see any questions. I did see Councilmember Farmer and Ottenberg and then McCutcheon. So go ahead, Councilmember Farmer.
Yeah, I guess I don't necessarily have a question because we've talked about this a lot at our various committees, but I do want to applaud you guys for coming up with this matrix and scoring system, because I think it helps us from getting what we had, which was like, I don't know, 20 something million dollars worth of projects on something that has $3 million. So I think that this is a great way to move forward. I think it's also a great way if we have projects that come forward, moving forward. I think it's an easy thing to apply that matrix and scoring system to help us understand, where these things fall before things just get kind of thrown onto a spreadsheet somewhere. So if people have conversations they want to have, that's fine. Or I'm happy to just say, let's make this unfunded list so we know what's going on and move forward.
Yeah, that's it too, with your permission, Mayor. Just wanted to add in that that actually, kind of raised a pretty good point that maybe in the future with capital projects that they go through this matrix process and they visit the 3 standing council committees, just the score. It could be for action item, but it's an up or down vote of, is this score accurate for each project that could come to us in the future? And that would make us analyze, okay, well, how much do we have in that year that we plan to budget it? I mean, it could apply to 15 different projects, but it's instead of having almost like a summary sheet, if you will, for any major capital projects moving forward, instead of saying, let's go put a grant out on this project or whatever it might be, we would have to say, okay, well, if we put a grant on it, that means we're obligated in 2029, let's just say. I think it could be helpful to show that up front, and then also try to incorporate as much cost as we can. I mean, including construction, engineering, et cetera, that goes with some of these projects. So,
and I think it's important for future councils and our citizens to understand, even a lot of times when we agree to do like a grant funding project, because these things are stretched out so long, we might have thought we were going to spend $300,000 and all of a sudden it's, $2 million. And we don't have a lot of recourse to pull that back once it's out the door, unless we're going to give up funds. And we've all been made very well aware, if you do that, the likelihood of getting funds again is significantly reduced. So I think that kind of a conversation about how we're doing these things every time is important. It should be a pretty easy thing to run through the process and figure this stuff out.
I see. I did have a quick question. Is it a follow-up? Okay, because
Yes, not a problem. The color categories are tied directly to the tier in which they were assigned. And this goes back in the budget document. There's a matrix that breaks it out. The green is tier 1, and the phase 2 of the internet, that is a little bit tricky just because we did just hear about AT&T being preliminarily awarded funding to address about 400 addresses. So that helps with that project in general. But yellow is mid-tier, which means they collected less than half of the total points that you could get through the process. And then red is well below. And how we looked at it was you filled it out, you had the point score total, and then you pretty much just filled in the 3 million that we had available minus any grant revenue you had. And then once we got to 3 million, what else? You say you get to 2.9 million. What can you do with that 100,000 filling it in there? So Bouquet scored high. That said, it had to get postponed because it was an $850,000 project. And by the time we got to that second level, that second tier, it couldn't be done without going over having expenditures exceed revenues. Sorry.
With the internet access project that we have listed here and the funding that you think AT&T is going to provide, what would that net cost now be?
For us, the city?
For us, the city.
Right now, I think it'll all be funded.
Okay, so we can take that one off this list and scratch it out, and that gives us 1.3 some odd change million to apply to other projects further down the list, correct?
Technically, yes, but in the sense that you still have to just base it off the revenues we have. So for instance, the current fiscal year, I mean, luckily we have a lot of grant revenue expected next year. But quite frankly, one second, let me pull this up here, but we're a little bit at like $5 million, but the majority of it is offset. The 2 million is offset by grant revenue. So overall, we've got about 3 million coming in. Actual net expenditures against the capital improvement sales tax fund account is about 3 million as well. That's why these are all on the unfunded needs list, because in a perfect world, we would be able to knock all these out. But the reason why we threw them into the grinder, if you will, being the matrix, was to be able to assign a score to them, get them in a list, and then kind of funnel them upwards, and then put a hard line where, quite frankly, where revenues then were less than expenditures. I mean, expenditures were less than revenues.
I'm going to ask another question. I'm sorry, folks, I'm being dense on this. You have this column here about the grant funding, but we don't know which grants we're going to get at this point in time, correct?
That is correct. So with the matrix, are you talking about, or with the unfunded needs for the paper?
With the paper.
Yep. So all of these, if it doesn't have secured grant funding tied to the project, then it didn't have grants included. That was the way it was looked at. But when you scored them out, there was a component that said, it was the title of the criterion was expected grant funding. And the idea behind it was, you get the highest score if we already have locked in money for that project. That got a 9. And then if it had a high likelihood, so a project that we know if we go out and do a grant application for it, we'll get X amount of funding, then that would score a 5. If it's something where we know of grant funding that it is out there, we just don't know if this project would fit, but it could, then it would be more of a 3. And then if there's no way there's going to be grant funding for this project, it'd be a 0. So that tried to take that concept into consideration when assigning these scores. And that's just one of many criterion.
So when we're looking at this and we're looking at the lemon green versus the pine green color, then we need to decide what we want to keep on the budget with the money that we currently have, correct?
That is correct. But depending on the project you add back in, we may have expenditures exceed revenues.
Exactly.
And my plan is tonight, if anybody wants to add something in, I could show how that affects the overall bottom line.
Okay. And my last statement is, of all the things in the lime green color, I'm going to move that we get the Strecker Road sidewalk segment from where there is no sidewalk to where there is on the city of Ellisville. That's maybe a quarter of a mile to a third of a mile segment. And I don't know how that's represented in segment C or segment E or F. But I think segment C is the one for the construction.
So those three projects, the big thing that's holding those up is that legal debacle, if you will, that we're dealing with currently. And
Okay.
we wouldn't be able to proceed with it until we get
Okay,
that done.
fine then.
All right.
I spoke for my residents who for many, many, many years, longer than Wildwood is Wildwood, has been creating a path along Strecker or walking in the street on Strecker. So
Councilmember Ottenberg.
Just a further clarification to the color coding here. The items in red, I guess it is, are those, I understand they're the lowest priority. Are you dropping pursuit of those projects? Or are you
They
just
can
saying
stay,
this-
they'll stay on this unfunded needs list. They're just no longer listed in the 5-year capital, because when you put these in the 5-year capital, that's when we have that, last December, we had a pretty large discussion here where our capital improvement program, we had way too many projects budgeted, and it was over a 5-year period, like $10 to $15 million of money we just didn't have. That said, we wanted to go in and make sure we were accounting for how much revenue we had in the pocket each year and then adding it back up. So this isn't necessarily saying these projects don't exist anymore. It's listing out the explanations in the unfunded needs document is explaining why they may not, kind of a summary of why they might not have the highest score, but also giving the council an opportunity today to say, hey, we'd like to make sure that we get X, Y, or Z done. I'll tell you if we can. If there's anything severely holding us back, like a legal consideration, that might be, that's very, not all of these projects, but if one does that, if we can't get an easement, then we can't get an easement, which does tie into a few of these. That said, overall, if we add any of these projects back, typically it's going to put our expenditures over revenues for any given year. So this document can still live and go with us, but overall it's taking projects out of it's putting it on a separate document instead of the capital improvement plan. So that makes it so we're, quite frankly, it's no longer being funded. It's true.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next, I believe we had, is it Councilmember McCutcheon? Yes.
So, excuse me. So I want to talk about the Green Pines Park. Those that you have been around for a while knows the 2+ years it took and the over 20,000 residents from all wards to be able to get the first 2 nodes of the park. We had asked for 3, it was planned out, but the council at the time did not want to fund the whole park. So the park has remained on the capital fund projects for many, many years. It gets pushed back each year. It's only $200,000, and in comparison to some of the projects that are in our budget, that is not a very high price. And I really don't know any additional funding that we spent on that park other than maintenance. And the trail that is being constructed alongside the park, that is not part of the park. That is a corridor, the trail corridor that's being planned that will take residents from Highway 109 up to Highway 100. It's just another segment of the trails that we have within the city. The trail is not the same or part and parcel of the park. And there is a good possibility that we will get a grant for this park. There are many, many grants that are available. We did spend a lot of our time this year for the Village Green Grant. We are at the top of the charter, I guess, requirement of the monies that we can spend for the Village Green. Otherwise, we're going to have to go out to the voters and ask for additional money. This third node brings in more swings. The city does not have a lot of swings. And there's a great significance developmentally in having swings. The swings hit every section of development there is. The back and forth helps kids organize their brains, and it helps them be able to connect. I don't want to be technical, but a dendrite to another dendrite, which helps make these pathways, which helps the children progress forward in their development. There's also motor skills related, there's social skills related. So, and again, it wasn't just 2,000 plus Ward 5 residents, it was residents from Ward 7 and Ward 8, Ward 4, Ward 3, that was also requesting this park in the third node. According to the strategic plan, it states that no new parks were to be constructed, but current parks were to be enhanced. And for this, Green Pines Park is extremely popular. And part of the budget goals said submit grants application for the improvement of popular park facilities. And Joe had somebody come in and do a consultant piece on parks. The Green Pines Park only needs 2 additions to it to meet those requirements, where most of the other parks need more than 2 additions to it to meet the goals and safety. I don't know exactly what the name of it is, but Joe can tell you. So, and Green Pines is an all-inclusive park. So what I'm asking here is, it's been pushed back every year to every year. Now it's being taken out completely. So I understand if no one feels comfortable adding this back in for 2026, but I implore you on behalf of the residents, not just Ward 5, but all the residents in the city who come to this park to play, to put this back in for 2027. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. All right, well, next speaker I do have, unless you have anything else, would be Councilmember Krantz.
We don't have three, like, it's already spoken for, but we get about $3 million in revenue each year from our half-cent tax. No. This is its own fund, treated separately, and what's being presented tonight is balanced. It is accounting for how many projects we have and what we have available, and anything else is covered by grants. So this is a balanced 2026 capital improvement budget. So are the remaining years that are included here. But will we get like with reserves or with? We get, that's each year. So any purchase you make within the city of Wildwood, there's going to be a half-cent tax, 0.05%. That goes directly towards our capital improvements. Just that source. That's the only source it comes from, and interest income on that fund. We have approximately, I'd say, like 6 million or so in reserves there for this fund, which is separate than our general fund. They're all listed in.
Joe.
Yes, and that's why I want to present this. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, last year in December when this was
Joe,
presented, we had
meeting with
an imbalance. There was too many projects on the list, and it was pretty clear from the council's perspective that, hey, we'll approve this, but we've got to get this thing under control. So that's why we introduced this process and introduced kind of slowly, like, here are the steps, here are the criterion to rank it against. And quite frankly, if anybody wants an Excel document version of it, I'd be happy to share it with you. I'd be happy to compile all of the council's information on all these projects, and then I can, or someone else can do a compilation of what the scores are for each one, and we could do some type of average score for each. That's the idea of having a process at least in place that
So
would.
for tonight though, and I think Councilmember Farmer, do you want to add something? Because I think
Yeah,
you.
so I
have
was just
all
going
this
to kind of
stuff,
help explain this in general. So we get about $3 million a year from our sales tax. That is what we generally have been using for our capital improvement budget. Last year, our capital improvement budget was, I think, in the range of $24 million or something like that.
Not for just that year, but it was like, oh, it was over $10 million, but a lot of it was covered in grants, but it just was not sustainable.
Right. So what we did was we ran all of the projects that were on the entire capital improvement budget, everything for the 5 years out. They ran them through the matrix and they scored them. And the ones that scored high and were in this green tier 1 have to get done kind of a level, those are all approved to move forward. So this list that we're talking about right now, these are items that fell off of that list because they didn't score high enough or, wouldn't be able to be funded. So as an example, this Bouquet Road one scored a
690.
a 600. All right. So scores a 600, it's $825,000, which those two numbers don't really line up. So the question that is being asked of us is if there's a project, so like Councilmember Cutchin, if your desire, or even, Councilmember Dodwell, if your guys' desire is to move one of these items onto the funded list, you can certainly advocate for that. You just have to then explain which funded item you want to take off to have it replaced. Because there's only so much money. That's what we've been talking about all night. So having just some unlimited document of projects that everybody thinks are really cool are not ever going to get done. And they put us in a pretty bad spot. In this case, like I was explaining to my counterpart here, I'd love to get the Strecker sidewalk thing done too. We don't have the legal ability to do it. And if that legal factor were to change, then this score changes. And it's very possible that in 2027, this now becomes a green item with a higher score. That's what's keeping that score down. So the question that's really being asked is there a project on this list that you feel is grossly miscommunicated or needs to be put in there? And if there is, that's fine. Then you need to go to the list of approved items and take whatever amount of money you want to put on, take it off to balance the budget. That's how it works. If there are other projects that we want to explore going to the reserve for, we can certainly do that, but that's not the conversation we're having right at this minute.
Thank you for that explanation. Yeah. So therefore, yeah, if you're looking to make a change, then this would be the time to do it. Otherwise, then we will keep it as is. Councilmember Galani.
Yeah, I was going to bring up just one thing related to the internet access project, phase 2. I know obviously we've been working on that and there's a lot of residents that are looking forward to that. I wanted to circle back to something I brought up about 5 years ago when we first started this whole thing with the internet deal. And at the time, my argument was the fact that I don't believe it's the city's responsibility to pay for people to get internet that don't have internet because it doesn't affect everyone in the city and all that. We went through that whole debate discussion. And at the time, we were receiving significant amount of about $8 million from the COVID relief federal funds. That's the only reason I approved that to move forward at all. Because like I said, everyone who doesn't have internet bought their home knowing they didn't have internet. And I don't think it's the rest once again. However, I talked about it back then and we dropped that conversation and never revisited it because we got all that millions of dollars from the feds to do what we did. Now we're into the phase of the project where we don't have any more money and we've got to dig into our own pockets to finish this. I brought up back then, and I think we should look at it again, is the folks that have received internet as part of this endeavor, there ought to be some type of access fee that's paid to the city. And it's nominal, $50 a month or something like that. It's to have high-speed internet access in a situation where they never had it before. And now if we did that, we could recoup the monies and be able to budget for letting the rest of the folks get the internet and make sure the whole city has internet. And those folks that didn't have it, that have it now, can pay a small fee to help reimburse the cost to the rest of the taxpaying residents of the city, and everybody's happy. I just wanted to revisit that and bring that up. We don't have to go through it right now, but it should definitely be something that's on the table to be looked at. If in fact we're looking to try to finish phase 2 and phase 3 or anything else moving forward.
So this document here is saying that phase 2, and it's not necessarily giving up on the internet. It's saying that we had recently learned, and this could change, it shouldn't change, but if it did change, we would have a different conversation. It would definitely cause a change in the score. That said, with the internet for phase 2, those addresses, we had just gotten confirmation that AT&T through the state program, the BEAD program, have gotten provisionally awarded. We don't know exactly what the cost is to the state for AT&T, but we know there's 400 addresses, and based off the reviewing each address, there's a very limited number. There's a couple out in the western portion of Wildwood, but it's very minimal that are not covered within this state program. So if they are able to come to terms with AT&T, that should effectively take this whole issue and take it off our plate. So that's why. And the one thing that could come back is that AT&T gets provisionally awarded. The state had someone fall through the cracks or something like that, where they didn't have someone listed as eligible. That could still be a little list of, less than, I think it'll be down to less than 50 properties in Wildwood after AT&T gets approved. Yeah.
Okay, so Councilmember Marshall.
Yeah, just to kind of add a little bit on to what Councilmember Farmer talked about, is if we can get grant funding, then it automatically moves up into the green category in the next budget year. So it's not like they're falling off. It's just that there's no grant. So there's no reason for us to allocate it in this particular year. So if a grant comes through, then it would move it back up into the cycle for the next time or for the extra reserves that are there. Thank you.
Councilmember Bannock.
Admin and Public Works Committee, we once saw that the roundabout at Old Staten Ridge was on the unfunded needs. And now it's not there anymore. And I'm wondering what happened to it.
For the actual memorandum that was included?
No, he wanted to know, where is it on? The
It's
list?
not included on this list, and we
Yeah.
can put it on there. The council, I didn't have it included on the Administration of Public Works document, but if you'd like to add, I mean, the council, we can have it added.
Yeah, I mean, if the county came up with, well, I've already contacted Mr. Kalesa. He says it's not going to be part of the cycle for next year.
And I know
So,
that I remember the discussion at Admin PW, and the motion was that, if in a future time there was monies that became available for that project, that it would be incorporated, just like we're doing now, it would be almost reintroduced to the capital improvement sales tax fund at that time. That actually does make sense to add it to the unfunded needs list. I'd ask for a motion from the council if we can add that to the list.
Is there a possibility of scoring it?
Yeah.
Has it been scored?
yeah.
The Old State Road has not been that,
Oh, I thought
well,
you had-
we've done 2 applications for federal funding.
Yeah, so the idea would be, certainly it can be added into the matrix, and then the matrix scores it out and then it, hears out where it's at. So the other piece of this is, and this will be probably down the road a little bit, but we're also having a conversation about where, if there should be like a scoring level where it just goes like there's really no point in pursuing this, because literally every project is going to be scoring above, whatever the threshold is. Like a couple of these, I think, came in at like the lowest ones were like in the 200s, I think. I remember 300. So the idea would be, you could say, hey, I'd like to, have this consideration in there. It'll go through the scoring process. And then obviously, because it's a county road and all that kind of stuff, it'll probably be on the unfunded one,
Sure.
but then it's there. And then the score and all that kind of stuff. And then just like with the Strecker sidewalks, should
Sure.
something change,
Sure.
then that score can change as well. So yeah,
Okay.
you just want to add it to
So
the.
could I make a motion now?
Sure. Yeah.
So I'd like to make the motion to add the roundabout Old State Ridge Road to the unfunded needs list.
I think you might want to say you would like to have it scored.
Scored.
Yeah, so you'd like to have a potential roundabout
Sure.
at Old State and Ridge Road scored for consideration to move on to the unfunded list.
What he said.
There we go.
Can I have
Yeah.
a second?
So you're making a motion on
I'm
that.
making a
and
motion.
Who's your second? Made by Councilmember Kranz.
Colleen, did you get it? The motion?
All right. So with that, any other discussion on the matter? All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed or abstain?
So,
motion.
just to return real quick, Mayor, we're adding this score in. We will run it through the scoring sheet. What committee, just since this is the first project we ran through this official process, I think it's a good thing. Yeah, we'll go to add. That makes sense. Just wanted to make sure. Okay.
All right. Then any
I
other?
would suggest, I don't know if you need a motion for this, but with any one of these kinds of projects, so I would recommend that like a road, something that is admin or public works is there, something that is what they're planning, start there.
Any other, Councilmember McCutcheon?
So I would like to make a motion that the Green Pines Park be added to the 2026 budget items with a caveat that a grant be attached to it. I heard what you said, Joe. And if not a grant in 2026, that it goes and stays on the budget for 2027.
I think what I heard though is that if you're asking for it to be in the 26th, though, you do have to come up with what is the item that's coming.
I
off the
understand, but I
26th.
can't do that at this point. That's why I'm making the motion that I'm making. I can't sit here and go through this right now and give you
I
a
don't know.
takeaway.
I think according to what I heard earlier, I think we need to find out how to keep it balanced. 26.
Yeah, right. So I mean, I would say, Deb, if like, because obviously we're going to have a conversation again when we approve this thing. So right now it sits on the unfunded list. I don't know what the process is to look at grants or things like that. Just guessing that it's probably not going to get a grant in the next 6 weeks. So I would say, your best move would be to say, I'd like to look into grants for, I guess it would be 2027 and then see what that score results in. I mean, you can certainly try and then, you just come up and say, okay, I want these 3 projects or whatever it is, the total 200 grand or whatever off, and then you can put it to a vote. Maybe it will succeed. I don't know, but that's kind of how the process was envisioned.
And I understand that, but then given the discussion that we had in planning and parks to take, what was it? 3 million? What was it? Out of reserve funds? Yeah, 350,000 out of reserve funds to cover some of the projects.
That's for operating.
Well, same thing as what operating budget. Yeah. Okay. So, okay, I'm going to relook at the budget and I'll get back to you.
Okay, sounds good. Then we'll come back to that in the coming meeting. All right, what else you got there, Tom?
Goodness, I made the mistake here. Okay, real quick, wanted to go over the Road and Bridge Fund for fiscal year 2026. I did want to give our Director of Public Works a quick shout to be able to kind of go over a couple things, but it really is just the routine maintenance items that are traditionally covered. It's going to include a 2026 annual concrete street slab replacement project. It'll include some resurfacing, asphalt street resurfacing, and truly it's going to be more so patching and overall, it's a budgeted, this is one of our better accounts that we can kind of keep an eye on because this revenue sources for these are both a motor fuel sales tax that's been very helpful and has increased this revenue source over time. And then also a small tax that's assessed within the county, and that's then distributed to the city. So both of those in of themselves pretty much allow us to do a lot of our street maintenance program within one fund. We typically just keep an eye on what the amount is, and then we'll actually create the scope for how much road we're going to resurface and how many concrete slabs we're going to replace. It's been very helpful in that way that it's not as kind of scope creep, if you will, for capital improvement, the capital improvement sales tax fund. That said, it's a balanced budget for 26, and overall, it's been helping us very much. It's anything, Rick, you want to add, but I don't have too much there.
Anybody have any questions for Rick on that? All right, seeing none, then we can move on to the next. That's the Road and Bridge Fund.
Questions?
No, we're good. Do you have a question? Oh. It's being passed around.
Oh.
Okay.
All right. We're good? Okay.
Yes.
That's it. All right. Next, we've got, no, and I briefly discussed this earlier, but just wanted to mention it, the Town Center Sewer Fund. This account was made specifically to extend sewer system out past Manchester Road. And that said, we did take out bonds. We redeemed them in 2023. We have less than 5 folks that have not paid their assessments. They're delinquent, and the city is currently working to get those delinquent assessments. And once that's done, legally, we need to return that money to the people that paid into the pot. So that's why it's showing a $350,000 expenditure. The city plans to retain $90,000 until all individuals pay their late and delinquent assessments. And at that point, the remainder would be transferred out to the individuals that have paid into the system. So just want to make a quick note there, but overall, that is pretty straightforward as well. The hope is that we can close out the fund in total in 2026. It's been a year of chasing people down to try to get that last little bit of payments. It's been a large effort, but happy to report that we're down to less than 5. Answer any questions though, if anyone has. Yeah.
Councilman Marshall.
So I do remember when we put that in, but I guess it's a legal question. The people who have paid diligently over the 20 years, can we hold their money back until you get the delinquent ones or not?
Legally, you can't. We had to submit a notice. We did submit a notice to those folks. And right now, at least from what bond counsel has stated, yes. But that said, you cannot, those funds can't magically, like you can't transfer them to the general fund or anything. They're treated in this Town Center Sewer Fund. And then they're transferred, not even, we can talk a little bit offline, but they are transferred to those folks that own the property right now, currently. That's where the checks
And then
get
paid in the money to start with.
It's the current property owner. So whoever owns that property today, even if they didn't pay in, if they own the property that paid in, they are the ones that get.
How
the check.
long do we allow them to be delinquent on it?
That's
Past the 20 years is up now.
it's been past 20 years, and that we've sent multiple notices, and there are a few folks that have not paid.
So what do we do?
You go to you take legal action.
When do we do that?
That is the plan we have in 2026.
Thanks.
All right, next.
All right. All right. The other 2 account funds are our TGA funds. Those are really there's 600,000 being transferred over to help fund our Route 109 BA project. That was budgeted in fiscal year 2025. So that's just being carried out in accordance with that directive. And then overall, those funds are set aside in 2025 originally for the right-of-way acquisition for the Main Street extension. There was monies, about $75,000 from the East and West TGA funds that were expected to be spent. That said, the development proposal was not approved in that area, and the right-of-way acquisition did not move forward. It is something the city does have planned for fiscal year 2026. The idea was that expenditure would be placed in that transfer. If we were going to use TGA funds, it'd be more appropriate to do it once you have construction beginning. So that said, that's really the main thing with the TGA is that there are monies being transferred out to go towards the Route 109 BA pursuant to what was approved in 2025. Other than that, though, there are no revenues anticipated at this time, and the only expenditure is a transfer. And then last but not least, we have our Deer Management Fund, and what was included in tonight's proposal, tonight's budgetary documents was White Buffalo's fiscal year, operational budget for 2026. So we can all give everybody a second to open that up. But in 2020, a little background here, in 2023, the city council, we kept having the issue of this being a pretty high expenditure to have within our general operating fund. And then once it would really throw off every other operation we had. So the council voted within the 2023 budget to create a deer management fund and to really create it with $1 million. That fund has been used since 2023. So for the 2024 operations and 2025 operations to begin working towards that program and start paying for a couple things that go into it. You have mailings to the folks that go out that we send letters to. We have the actual deer count that we do at the police department that really accounts for overtime costs and the cost that was associated with the individual that would assist us. And then you also have the cost for White Buffalo. We wanted to include that tonight because it is included in the fiscal year 2026 budget, but should there be any questions or concerns, we'd be more than happy to discuss that at this time. Overall, the plan for fiscal year 2026 is they're looking to go into the Southeast 1 region. That's the new area. And then the other side of it is they're going back into the NE1 and NE2 regions, not to do very much. The idea is to remove approximately 100 deer from the NE1 region, the SE1 region, sorry. And then about 50 deer from each other region for the NE1 and NE2. This year, we also are looking at the SE1 and we're going to be expanding the border somewhat south. So quarter-mile south of Old State Road, and then a quarter-mile west of State Route 109. The goal of doing that is that deer do not obviously recognize borders, so the hope is we can expand and get a couple more properties that are over 3 acres, but then also we are able to go in and try to hit these deer vehicle collisions directly on the head, since the majority of deer vehicle collisions take place on our major roadways, including 109, 100, Old State Road, Shepherd, Strecker, Allenton. Those are the roads that you're typically seeing these deer vehicle collisions. So the idea is to kind of sandwich those roads in and try to get as many deer as we can removed from those corridors. Not only that, just a quick note too, is that this program, there was in Labadee, there was a recent report of chronic wasting disease. So we had nothing in our deer population that shows that there's even a trace of it. We had a lot of the deer, all the deer are tested before they go to the processor and before they're donated to the zoo. And during the first year, there was extensive testing done by MDC. But one note I wanted to point out was that pretty close to St. Louis County, there was 1 deer found with that disease, but it has been found that reducing the total deer population can help counteract that very nasty disease that we hope has nothing to do with St. Louis County. But yeah.
Okay.
Answer any questions if you
Go ahead, Councilmember Nyan, go ahead.
And I don't know that this is the time to do it, so if it's not, then that's fine too, but I know Scott and I and multiple of us have had, and in Public Works, we've heard from multiple people on the deer situation. And I guess it doesn't really have necessarily to do with the budget. But I know some of us have discussed possibly doing a drone survey, so we would get a better idea exactly of what the deer count is. And I know that's a whole nother conversation where we do it, and we just do it in a confined area in one of the areas. And I guess it relates to the budget in that obviously it costs money. It would be finding the company that we want to do it. But then it would also perhaps change some of the costs based on how many deer then would be culled. Maybe it would be more deer that we would find being culled. Maybe it would be fewer deer, so it might save money. But I know we've done surveys and I think we've done them to the best of our ability, but I don't think anybody disagrees that we didn't do it the most accurate way. And I feel like going forward, just to answer to the community and to us, so we all really understand it, to get some really definitive numbers going forward. So again, I don't know that that's something to, get into the weeds about tonight, but I just wanted to put that up.
I think it'd be appropriate if that's what we're wanting to do in 26, then the department would want to know that there's a budget item would be inclusive, and original estimates anywhere between 20 to 40,000 for a drone survey of, a full area. It could be all 3. That said, we've been working with MDC to try to find a couple based off some feedback that was received. And right now, that's a rough estimate. We've also had a couple leads on some folks that may be much more cost effective, and we're looking into that now. There's been one report of $1 an acre, which that is the hope that we can actually see that out. If that's true and it's good data, then I think that'd be a great idea. But that said, I think we would just need a plan for that type of expenditure.
So one more follow-up. So is that only something we can do after this year's culling, or can that be done before?
That could be done before. It can be done whenever. I think that what would probably be the best scientific way to do it would be to have it done coinciding with our manual collection of data, so you can compare the results 1-to-1. And then if those are similar, then you're proving 2 points at the same time. So I would almost say if we're going to do it, we would probably want to dip it in at the end of calling for 2026, or if the council is not in support of it, that's fine too, but we could do it anytime. But I would say do it at the same time as the other source and then be able to compare that data 1-to-1.
And now I know we have a couple of folks that have their hands up. I saw Councilmember Mabry, Ottenberg, Robolewski. I don't know if there's anyone else, Vanek, Rambo. So just to keep us on track, because the agenda topic is related to the budget tonight. I don't want us to veer off, but I do think it's worth that we may want to have a separate conversation or a meeting that's open to anyone who wishes to be a part of that conversation. I think there's a good exchange of some ideas. And I know that some folks have been having some conversations. And so, you know, anything that obviously helps improve, you know, the efforts of the city, I think is always greatly appreciated. So let me go to, I think it was Mabry, Ottenberg, Vanek, and then Rambo. And again, let's not, oh, and Robolewski too. Let's, but yeah, if we find ourselves getting too far into, you know, into the weeds of just that, we're going to veer off our agenda topic tonight. Go ahead.
Microphone.
Yes, thank you. It'd be whether the drone study that's under contemplation is going to occur for the deer that are culled this fall and next spring, or if we're somehow not doing that now, we're going to shovel it off till next year. Because I'm hearing what doesn't sound like definitive. We got plans, we're going to be talking to people, we're going to implement it because that's the smartest thing to do.
Well,
So-
currently that's what we're trying to get direction for tonight is, and we had planned to have the draft agreement with the proposal incorporated in at the November meeting for the city council as legislation. That said, we've already sent out an initial letter. We haven't necessarily confirmed everything because we haven't gotten a full deep-throated endorsement that, hey, we're doing year 3. That would be helpful tonight so we can begin. We've already sent out letters to the preliminary areas saying that you could be included, but we want to begin sending those letters and making contact. It is an intensive effort to get folks to sign up. We've had over 275 residents sign up and say they're willing to participate. That is pretty significant considering what you're asking them to do. And it doesn't happen overnight. You have to send multiple letters and spend hours and hours on the phone with them. So I would say the sooner the better on direction.
275 residents are willing to participate in conducting drone aerial studies?
No,
You
we're
threw
willing.
me off there.
Sorry, I was referring to the actual polling operations themselves.
75 properties are willing to have their properties.
They've filled out the form in the past, or they've indicated that they're interested in
Okay.
some other way.
And of that total, then White Buffalo will select the best of the best to put their canopies and their sharpshooters in.
Yep, that's
Okay.
typically how it works. They'll go out and make sure the site is perfectly safe and it's in a good shape to be able to actually get the app. You need them evenly that's the big problem here with being able to do this at all. You need even distribution of sites, which means you have to saturate these residents with letters, with communications, because if you don't get on top of that early, then you're going to find yourself with pockets that haven't been addressed. And if that occurs, then you're just going to remain with pockets of deer that you're going to be spending the money to not have the effect that you're wanting.
Okay, the brunt of my question here is that we will be able to counter and answer to what I think is satisfactorily the very voiceful and impassioned residents who want to make certain that we include the technology of drone counts to quell their fears that we're not providing accurate data and that we're either taking too many deer, which is what their allegation is. So that answers that. It's on the works. It's in the pipeline. Whatever our budget I'm looking at is going to include an allowance for that up to $40,000 for this culling season. Is that what I'm gathering?
We would need to add funds in the current budget. It wasn't
And
planned.
that's what I'd like to make a motion for, if that's what it's gonna take. And then we take that money from reserves if that's.
It doesn't need to come from reserves. There's already a fund.
But the fund,
Okay.
so how it was in 2023, when I said they split it off, the council split it off from the general fund, what really happened was there was a declaration that this is now going to be utilized, doesn't create revenue other than interest on the actual sitting balance of the account. But this is going to be used for deer management and deer management alone. The idea behind it was to make sure that this objective didn't get dropped off in future years. That said, the idea would be that we would add that in. It doesn't necessarily have to have a reserve tied to it. There's just a fund. It would reduce that total amount of the fund that you would have for the full 5 years, but it could be done.
So therefore, is motion appropriate then to allocate the money from that fund? Or, all right, do you want to go ahead and put that motion on the floor? Okay, so the motion then would be appropriate is to allocate or not to exceed 40,000 from the deer fund for the use of a drone survey of the deer population. But that would at least allocate the money in the budget there for that purpose there. Motion made by Councilmember Mabry, second. We have Councilmember Nyan. We have a motion now on the floor related to that. So any discussion related to that motion, Councilmember Ottenberg. And then Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just to tag on to the comments from Councilmember Nyan and in regards to the motion from Councilmember Mabry. Having done some research on this, some information that's been published by White Buffalo indicates that a drone survey utilizing thermal imaging equipment is the most accurate and effective way to do a deer count in any given area. Spotlight checks tend to be ineffective and inaccurate because they don't account for the random distribution of deer in a particular area. Another advantage of using the drone technology with the thermal imaging equipment is they can identify deer in areas with a lot of vegetation. And as we all know, throughout Wildwood here, in various wards, we have residential areas that include a lot of vegetation where deer may not be spotted using the spotlight method. So it's just to, I guess my comments are just in support of Councilmember Mabry's motion. Thank you.
All right, so thank you for the discussion on the motion there, Councilmember Farmer.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I don't think it should be anywhere close to $40,000. So let's hope it isn't. I would suggest, since we've spent the last couple of years focusing on NE1 and NE2, I agree with City Administrator Lee that when we do our normal deer count, that's when we want to do the drone for that specific area. I would also suggest going back to, I think it's NE2 or whatever the first year.
NE1 was the first year, NE2, and now we're in SE1.
Right. So I think we focus the count wherever we're going, because I know we're mixing that up a little bit, but I also think we probably want to go back to NE1 and double check that with the data that we had, just so we can have some kind of extra counts. And then the goal being, I think we can pretty quickly figure out with math how far off we might be on these accounts or accurate we might be on these accounts. And for those of you guys that weren't on the council at the time, the $1 million that's been advocated or allotted to the deer program, I can't remember where it came, the exact reason, but it was like a windfall $1 million that just literally showed up one day. And that was why we used it to lock in this 5-year plan. So the goal with this what's it? Yeah, it was charter settlement or something. The idea was to be able to do this 5-year plan to see how this is going. And then I would expect probably when we get this data back in the spring or whenever it is, we're going to start to have conversations about how we want to manage and maintain that moving forward, so it doesn't just all kind of drop off the list. But I think the drone thing is a great idea because, we've had a lot of, I don't know if it's misinformation or disinformation or confusion or whatever you want to call it. But we've had some people say that there are only 6 deers left in part of our town, which there are 6 that live in my front yard. So I don't think that is correct. But yeah, I think it's a good thing to do. And I would just say, let's try to do it as equitably as we can to cover those 2 areas.
And that's, can the department get a little clarification? Because if we want to do a drone survey at the same time as we do the other survey, that's fine. I think that could be incorporated, and I think having that meeting would be suffice too. But if we want to do the drone survey prior to culling operations this year,
We do.
that can't happen. I mean, you cannot do culling operations and then we'd be fine.
No,
That said,
the idea would be when we're going to do our normal counts after the cull, and then I would personally, I would focus on the area that we were working most. And if we can add on the other area to double check those numbers, great, but that is after the important part.
that can be done.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Robolewski, is it related to the motion? Okay, we'll come back to you. On this side here, Vanek or Rambo, no, not related to the motion. Okay, so if it's related to the motion, this is a good time. Yep.
Yeah, so as everyone knows, this is an enormously complicated topic, and I can make it even more so quite easily. So I think the mayor's suggestion is a very good one, that we have a separate meeting to discuss this sort of thing. The technology is not a panacea. It can't, the drone surveys can be more accurate, providing a number of criteria, specific criteria are met. They are going to be costly. I feel like it's putting money towards something that is ancillary to the problem that we have with an overpopulation of deer. I'm confident in the efforts of the Wildwood Police Department and of Sergeant Brad Wendling in counting the deer. There's just a margin of error that's made greater by the realities that we don't have roads everywhere. We need to count the dang deer. The drones will certainly help with that if we find the right company and it's at a reasonable price point. I don't think we need to spend $40K on anything that's not directly related to removing deer. But if it provides confidence to specifically to the 2% of our population who are actual archers and came to complain about the counts and so on and so forth, that's all great. I feel very confident that the data collected will be real close to the distance sampling data that we've collected, because it's a scientifically valid method that's been used for decades before drones were developed. And so my real point here is the drones will have their own set of problems. And if we overlay them with distance sampling, we can come up with a really great count, because a drone, a thermal imaging drone, if a deer was recently laying down, it will count that as a deer because of the heat. If a deer is laying next to someone's heat pump in the dead of winter, it will not count that deer because it thinks it's a heat pump. And sometimes they count goats. They would count my dog certainly as a deer, et cetera, et cetera. So there are tricks of the trade with both methodologies. Duplicating effort everywhere would be a senseless waste of money, but duplicating the effort in one specific chosen location would be smart, because we can allay the people's fears of of miscounting and so on and so forth. So I just want to, basically, I'm reinforcing the suggestion that we have a separate discussion about this, because it's complicated. So
Great, thank you. All right, I don't see any other folks that wish to speak on the motion on the floor, so therefore, is everyone clear on this motion, or do you need it repeated?
Could we have it repeated, please?
Okay, could you go ahead? You have it.
The motion was to allocate funds for the drone survey, but not to exceed $40,000.
Yeah, that is the motion. That was,
For next year, right?
yeah, April,
Well,
probably.
Yeah, I think Councilmember Mabry wanted it for this year, but I'll let him speak.
It's after the culling, so it'll be in 2026.
Are there going to be deer shot?
Oh, wait a
New
minute.
Year?
Yes.
Let's get some clarity here, because I think Councilmember, City Administrator Lee answered a question earlier about it could be done potentially before the culling this year.
It would be very difficult. So doing that, I mean, we have to get an agreement put together. We'd have to probably put together, I mean, depending on the cost, we had to put together an RFP for it. Then we'd have to give that the proper due notice time. We'd have to get 2 readings. We'd have to get that approved by the council. And all of that while we need to be contacting residents if we're interested. If we don't want to do year 3 until we have this data, that's
no.
fine.
When is the culling scheduled current?
January, like the beginning of January should be when it will start.
So
No. The end of archery season is January 15th, and they start putting out bait in January. The culling is probably going to occur in March. I would say.
Yeah, culling will happen. It'll be like late January.
So
They
then
put bait out January. Yep.
Yeah.
motion that
We
would be appropriate. Be appropriate for 2026 because you might be able to.
that would be-
Still be. All right.
Contract and blah, blah, blah. Is that what I'm hearing? Which makes it feasible for this culling season.
Main thing is just thinking of the staff strains here because we have to get a lot of people signed up.
We have to line up culling and the
Yeah.
road count with the truck. It can't happen until after they cull the deer.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, you can technically do a population count on foot, but it's not going to be helpful.
Still think it's.
It will answer some questions, but overall, that time that we spend doing that is going to waste money because we're not going to have enough parcels included in this upcoming year.
Okay. Well, anyway, I think the motion has to be for 2026 because that's what's on the agenda for tonight.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So,
Yeah.
I rescind the motion as being useless or not applicable.
All
We
right.
can discuss this at any, after next January.
All right. So Councilmember Mabry's rescinding the motion. Councilmember Farmer, you still want to keep it?
I'm going to make a motion to perform a drone-based deer count after the 2026 cull, which will happen in the winter time, right? Sometime after January. This will be part of the 2026 budget, and we're going to take that money out of the currently allocated deer fund. And we're going to proceed with the 2026 deer cull since it was already allocated 2 years ago.
Okay. So we need a second on that. Maybe Councilmember Dodwell. All right. Any discussion on that motion? All right. Councilmember Mabry on the motion.
I'll vote for that because while it's too late for this year, it's still good for next year. But I would have really rather preferred we dig in and spend 3 months, which sounds like ample time to me. I appreciate that there's staff considerations, but we could contract out, as we do with a lot of other things, the amount of work that it would take staff to coordinate that. But that's all really.
Okay. All right. All those in favor, everyone clear on the motion now? All right. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? All right. Back to before we had Councilmember Roblesky. You wish to say something?
Yeah, just one comment. My first question, I think, was answered by Councilmember Farmer. I was trying to determine how long the plan is, and he said 5 years. For some reason, I thought it was 3 before it had to be approved again. It's the number one thing that residents talk to me about is that they do not like the deer culling. But the second piece is hopefully if we get the drone data, that then we can determine if they're for future decisions of whether we really need to have it again, because my area is feeling like they're not seeing the deer at all like they used to. And from walking the trails, we're not seeing very much anymore, which is part of the goal. But for my folks, they want to see the deer. So just wanted to make the comment that I'm one of the areas that's probably different than most, that they want to see the program end.
All right. Councilmember Vanek.
Mr. Lee met with the Missouri Department of Conservation today. Was there any information that was discussed today that would help us moving forward? Is there any nuggets that
They're going to be sending over all their contacts for drone survey companies. These are big first step. That was the main thing. And also just outlining the process for getting a permit for the upcoming year, which we get approved, and the target recommendation, they will write it, but it was more so just going through the natural process so that if we want to proceed as a council with third year of the program, that it can be done.
Okay. And also, how does this process move forward from here, since there's so much interest in the community amongst the hunters? So regarding this, how, is there going to be, when's the next meeting with the public where they can exchange ideas and blah, blah?
The city was hoping to get direction on whether or not it's even going to be included, since the department's gotten some mixed feedback from the council. So there was some concern about sending out notices to residents and then having it denied. That said, we can really have two different open house meetings and then a separate meeting with these different individuals. I think it would be appropriate to do it separately because those open houses really should be for folks that are looking to sign up to participate. That's the hope is.
Sure.
And if not, and if it just turns into a discussion about dog and hunter program, I do want to emphasize how much time it takes to get people it's okay if we don't want to do it. It's just if we're going to do the program, there is a significant amount of time every resident at least take 2 hours of time to explain to them the ins and outs, and then also having White Buffalo contact them, having the ranger, whomever is speaking on the police side, to go out and visit the site. It just takes a lot of effort in order to make sure that property's safe. So I just wanted to make sure that we kind of separate the two, because if we do one, it could scare off people that have signed up already and that might want to sign up.
In future city council meetings, proving, are there going to be any meetings where we talk about actually approving the money or approving the program?
The idea tonight was with the budget being approved tonight, if that, not approved, but if there was no direct problems with the budget as presented for the Deer Management Fund, we would actually we would most definitely appreciate a motion to prepare legislation adopting the agreement with White Buffalo outlined in the proposal. And that would go to that'd be introduced at the next meeting, and then it would go from there. But the hope is we got to get started by January, so it's got to get a move on if we want to do it.
And then, sorry, and unless you're gonna tell me it would be way to attendant, I would suggest one meeting public and one meeting for our
archery community.
Or group separately.
The idea was
I think two's overkill.
Yeah.
Nothing meant there.
The main thing was if there's any residents, and what we did last year that was pretty effective, because we got, it wasn't 1 million people, but we ended up getting, at least 5 from each meeting that ended up signing up at the end of the day, which is meaningful when you're really distributing. But one's in person and then one we did virtually, which was helpful for a lot of people. Kind of gave them that permission to join.
All right. I think we've beaten this
One more
to death.
comment, just a couple of
One
quick
quick
comments.
final comment
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, most of the objections that I've seen, and every year a new crop of folks comes out and complains about the same sorts of things. It's because they haven't read the existing documentation and they haven't attended the prior meetings. And so what I have seen happen is once we get in a room and share the actual information, Conservation Department recommendation of 10 to 20 deer per square mile, and the fact that we have 80 or 90 per square mile, and the fact that nature is very sparse and you're not supposed to see deer walking along the road every night, whether you like seeing deer or not. It's not healthy for the deer. They're a lot healthier. The remaining deer are a lot healthier at lower numbers because they have better nutrition. There's lots and lots of points like that that seem to get across to people. And in the meetings that we've had, I always attend, and we always have some archery hunters that come, and then after the information is explained to them, presented to them neutrally, they generally come around to our way of thinking and say, yeah, we'll have healthier bucks to shoot in a couple of years if we do this cull properly now. And so the archery community this year has asked Tom for a meeting. I'm happy to participate. I think it should be recorded in a public meeting and so on and so forth, but specifically intended to discuss the issues with the archery community, because we can recruit them for maintenance purposes. That's been in the plan from day one, is open up more hunting opportunities for the archery community while we get the population under control and reduce deer vehicle collisions and the tick-borne diseases and all the property damage that happens and so forth. And so, as I said, this is very complex, but I think sooner rather than later, Tom, you should try to schedule that meeting. If there's anything that I can do to take some of the burden off your hands, I'm happy to do it. But it can be a free-flowing. It doesn't have to be a big presentation. Just show up, guys, and we'll talk, because it's going to be a finite group of folks. And then after that, we can have our normal town hall, which has always been very effective and very well received and very cordial, and there's never any animosity and so forth. So I think we've got a good program going. We just need to continue with that.
So just a quick question, and I think that's a fine idea. Wanted to just clarify though, who all is gonna join the meeting? Because if it's the whole council, then it'll have to be just posted.
Yeah, I think.
That said, I mean-
We can
Decide.
develop the logistics offline here.
Decide.
And again, just to be respectful of everyone's time, because everyone's been in the same seat since 5:30. So, I think that covers all of the work session agenda items here. So miscellaneous, is there anything that anyone has on the miscellaneous? Councilmember Farmer and Dodwell.
Yeah, real quick, those of you that have been on the council before, you will recognize them. Those that you of you that have not, I'm hoping to get some surveys out by Friday, I hope. That's just sort of our annual reviews of Tom and Colleen, stuff like that. So just keep an eye out. It'll be in your city email. It'll just be a survey and, answer it to the best of your ability. It all comes in basically anonymously, and then it gets tabulated out. So feel free to be as honest as you possibly can be. That's the best way to answer those questions.
Thank you, Joe. Councilmember Dodwell.
I would like to take a moment of silence for an ex-council member, Teresa Clark, who lost her son this past weekend. So if we could do that for just 20 seconds, maybe. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councilmember Albers, I think you've exceeded your limit for tonight. Okay. With that, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn. Made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Preston.